Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot today. Boys and girls, we are just, 5 days away from the NFL draft? Man, it's coming up quick. It could not come fast enough. I'm so sick of all the discussion that's going on. It feels like we're infighting between offensive line, tight end, wide receiver, what's going on? People get all sorts of frustrated and whatnot. Now I'm tired of it. But I love the draft. I absolutely love the draft. Becca, hanging out with a friend. Rennie, asleep. Shay with mom. Dad can stream a little bit. Little impromptu stream. So I'm going to talk to you guys in the chat. Going to give you guys some of my thoughts. I do think Joe Douglas is blowing a little bit of smoke. We heard some of the comments he made yesterday at his pre-draft press conference. Want to go through some of that. I did release a video a little bit earlier today, so you guys probably saw, maybe you saw some of that. But we could discuss that. We could talk about general questions in general, just to figure out what we should do. Should we make a trade up? As Troy says right here. He says, trade up for neighbors. Should we trade down? Should we stick and pick? Joe Douglas, to his credit, in, 4 or 5 drafts that he's done now? I think there's only been one draft that he did not make a move in the first round, whether that be trade up or trade down. We trade up for AVT. We traded up for Jermaine Johnson. We traded up for, or we traded back in the Aaron Rodgers trade. So obviously there's a lot to maybe like, not like. Why is my camera? What the heck is going on here? What did I do? I did something silly. All right, let's see why I'm frozen here. That's not what I wanted to do. Oh, bear with me for a second. Let's see if I can change this up. Of course, I jack up my camera when I do this. Stupid Ryan. Let's see, can I talk? Nope, that didn't work either. I'm gonna go a little USB camera. Ugh. This looks ugly. What did I do? Let's see. Virtual cam. It's stupid. Dumb. Maybe it's because 2 systems are using the camera. All right. So maybe we'll do it on this. That's frustrating. Let's see if I can boot off my camera for a second. Look how good that guy's looking right there. I'm kind of confused. I think Joe Douglas is blowing smoke. Let's see if I change to FaceTime cam. I bet I go back. It's still going to be frozen. Damn it. All right. Well, we're gonna make it work anyway. Although, you know what's really frustrating? I bet when I switch over to... Man, this is crummy. All right, let's see if I could sprucing this up. This is how I'm going to do it on the fly. Brightness. That. Give me a little bit of saturate. Ooh, that's a little goofy. Not the best of cameras. That's okay. We'll get through it little by little. Bobby Woodruff, thank you so much for coming in, becoming a member of the channel. Greatly appreciated. Jay Nasty says, let's go Knicks. Let's go Rangers. New York playoffs weekend. Happy 420, guys. Boys and girls. It is 420, so happy holidays. I guess it's a good segue. If you guys would like, oh, of course, I'm frozen in the corner too. See, this is how this all works out. What am I doing? What am I doing? All right. If you guys would like to celebrate the holidays, get yourself some THC from Crescent Canna. They got some THC syrup, Very nice. Right here. Bam. Right there. Little eyedropper. Put it in your coffee. Pretty solid. They also hooked me up with some Sleepy Time gummies. I gotta create a new graphic. These things are definitely make you sleepy. And new seltzer coming out. Bam! Watermelon, sour watermelon. 10 milligram seltzers. So that's your jam. You want to head over to the link in the description down below. Use promo code JetsTalk, get yourself 25% off. Very much appreciated. So happy holidays, Jay Nasty. Tony comes and says, love Tanner Mordecai as a developmental quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers. I have no idea who that is, but I will look it up right now. Let's see what we got going on here. Tanner Mordecai. Wisconsin. 6'2", 218 pounds, 24 and a half years old. His play style is a mobile pocket passer, according to NFL Draft Buzz. His projected round, undrafted free agent. All right. No one said you have to use a draft pick on a quarterback. Could definitely go undrafted free agent round or late round pick in the draft. Totally acceptable. I don't know anything about him though, so I can't comment too much there. Kevin, that name is wild to me, but very cool. Kevin says, I don't care what we do as long as we come away with a left tackle in the first round and Ricky Pearsall in the second or third round. Kevin, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I do not think the New York Jets are going to take an offensive lineman at 10. I'm team weapon, and just a gut feeling, I think they want someone that's going to contribute immediately this year as opposed to a guy that might only play 6 games. That's not to say offensive line isn't the smart move, potentially, to go with at this juncture. I wonder if I can... Oh, you know what? I might be able to... Let's see if I can finagle bagel this. I might be able to get my old camera. As I troubleshoot stuff over here. Go. Will it go now? Ah, all right, we're back. Oh, this is so much better. I hate that other camera. Jeez. Don't tell the other camera I said that. I do think I would be surprised if we went offensive. I shouldn't say surprised. I'd be a little disappointed. I want to go weapon. Troy says, is there any chance the Cards draft a quarterback? I don't think so. If they traded Kyler, I would have said okay. And I did think last year they were going to do that, but they did not do that. Pure Adrenaline Sports says, the adventures of live streaming. Yeah, see, what's happening is I've got 2 things going. So some of you guys might be watching the vertical portrait version of this stream, and some of you may be watching the landscape portion of the stream. And because I'm using 2 different softwares to do this, I had the same source plugged into both, and the camera, I guess, froze. So hopefully it doesn't freeze again, because I really like this camera. Huge erection says, I don't reckon Joe Douglas is his real name. Oh, maybe he's lying. Ryan Rivera, good morning, Ryan. Did you see the new jerseys yet? What did you get? So, or did you get a new jersey yet? Yes. So I didn't get it in yet, but I ordered a green Garrett Wilson number 5. I also got the Jets draft hat. So that's supposed to come in Monday. I think my Garrett Wilson jersey doesn't come in until May. And then I got a helmet also. So the helmet's going to replace the little helmet that's up there. So I'll actually get like a good size helmet. Bobby says, Ryan, did you hear I called the WFAN Wednesday night? Is this in regards to that player that everyone's talking about? I'm out of the loop. I've been missing a little bit. I've been tagged in a bunch of stuff though. But very cool, Bobby. Very cool. Scott V says, went to Dispo earlier. Got a bunch of free goodies. There you go. Yeah, they sent me. So it's funny. I reached out to them to like get stuff. I was like, hey, I really like your seltzers. Do you want to sponsor my channel? Because I love when I get like sponsors that I mean, look, I enjoy all the sponsors that I wind up getting, or I usually don't accept the sponsors unless I like the stuff that they're doing. But every now and then I find one that I'm like, oh, this would be really cool if I could get some free stuff. And I bought like $150 worth of like Crescent Canna stuff on my own. And then I was like, hey, yeah, I got a YouTube channel. I think some people might like that. Yeah, blowing smoke on 420. It's just occurring to me now, the title of the thing. That's all right. Whatever. Goatman says, I kind of want Michael Penix Jr. behind Aaron Rodgers. I really like Michael Penix a lot. I don't endorse taking a quarterback in the first round. I don't endorse trading up into the second round to get a quarterback. I don't think Penix lasts until the second round. So as much as I do like him, I want to go all in for this year. I don't want to take any half measures. I'm even open to the idea of trading up to 8 if you want to get Odunze in front of the Bears. I'm open to going up to like 5 or 6 if you think you can get Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be like the real get, I think, for me. But I think the move is going to be Odunze at number 10. Gut feeling. What's up, Battery Bros? Good seeing you here. Duncan says it's rare treat for me to catch you live, Ryan. Big thank you for everything that you do for the Jets community. Oh, of course. Dude, I really enjoy this. It's super fun to just come on and like talk ball with you guys. Like, I hate that I'm back at work and I don't have as much free time to hop on and do this. And then with the kids, they're just chaos until like 8 o'clock. Oh no, my camera's frozen again. Bastards. All right. This is what happens when I'm like screwing around. Let's see if it'll click back over. Will it do it for me? Come on, one time. There we go. All right. So we might be unplugging and plugging back in to make this thing work. Afram says, Ryan, if Neighbors falls past the Giants, does JD trade up for him? I would consider it for sure. I prefer Odunze a little bit more. I shouldn't say a little bit more. All three would be fine. Odunze, I really like. I like his personality a lot. I like that he's friendly with Garrett Wilson. The personality himself seems like he's a little bit more of a team player. Now, maybe that's speculation on my part. Neighbors, some of the comments he made about the Giants and needing a quarterback give me like a little bit of like, I don't love that. But the Jets have a quarterback, and I do think Neighbors is really good. Like, Neighbors might be better than Marvin Harrison Jr. For me, Marvin Harrison Jr., the size at 6'4", 6'5", and like just the pedigree and everything, that's what I would prefer to do. So if I'm coming up, I would prefer to go up for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I would prefer to go even like a little bit higher. Like if you want to use I've opened up to the idea of using the 2025 first. I was watching one of Blewit's streams last night. I was like, all right, maybe you could convince me. Blewit's on board. I could get on board with that. Anthony, what's good, dude? Says, man, would I love the Jets to hit on a late undrafted quarterback, post A-Rod, get the cheapest quarterback with the young weapons we have, a la Purdy. That would be incredible, right? Like you got your Mr. Irrelevant pick. I still think there's a really good shot we get Jordan Travis. There's Jordan Travis and Michael Pratt are the two that like we've kind of talked about a lot over the course of the offseason. And when I look at the Jets' top 30 list that they've brought in, they've looked at a bunch of different quarterbacks. Jordan Travis, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Davius Richard, Keaton Slovis, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, Michael Hires, Bo Nix, Carter Bradley. 3 of those came in for top 30 visits. That's Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, and Michael Hires. I might have the graphic here pulled up for this. I was going to like talk about this in a video, and I don't know if I know I didn't because I didn't release the video. Let's see. Do I have it? All right. I think this is it. Bam. So these are the quarterbacks that the Jets met with. I do think that these top few quarterbacks right here, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix, that's purely for intel purposes. I think we met with those quarterbacks. You could call it due diligence to make sure the Jets didn't want to trade up or something along those lines. But I think this was more about figuring out which quarterbacks are going in front of us, what teams are interested in those quarterbacks, and how it could impact the Jets' number 10 overall pick. Bo Nix, obviously, if there's enough interest in him, maybe the Jets can convince someone to trade up. That would be a really interesting thing to have happen, because now you got potentially 5 quarterbacks going. I'm a little surprised we didn't meet with J.J. McCarthy. I feel like that would have been a good one to know where he could end up going. And then as far as like other quarterbacks, we met top 30 visits, Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, Michael Hr. 2 times we met with Travis, 2 times we met with Hr, and then 4 times we met with Michael Pratt. So you could say like, well, since we met with him 4 times, that could be, you know, who we ultimately go with. Pratt, we did have a private workout with. We attended his pro day. We did not attend Jordan Travis's pro day. And then we obviously did the Senior Bowl with Michael Pratt as well. So I do think it's possible that you go either one of these 2 in particular. Now, the Jets did also meet with Spencer Rattler 3 times. They did not have him in for a top 30 visit. I would think you would want your guy in for a top 30 visit if you're looking quarterback. So I tend to lean either Travis or Pratt. Hires feels like he could be an undrafted free agent or really, really late round pick. I'm not crazy about him. But I would take either Travis or Pratt in this sort of situation. Tim comes in asking, outside of the Pats screwing us last year, I worry that the work you guys do online will eventually be looked at by rival scouts. Great stuff, though, man. Yeah, there is some degree of, like, how much do I want to share that I find out about, and how much do I want you guys to know, because obviously it helps me grow my channel if I have some inside, you know, knowledge and whatnot. I do have a video coming out, or I might release it a little bit later. We could talk a little bit about it. I got some comments from someone who met up with Nathaniel Hackett and just having a casual conversation. This was not like a threatening type of like interview or like, hey, I'm digging for information, just sort of a casual conversation. Hackett said the offensive line is set. So if you guys are thinking O-line, at the very least, Hackett's not thinking it. And it felt very much like the Jets regime probably is not thinking it. I think they're going to go with a wide receiver. I think that's where they go. Goatman says, I want Rome Odunze or Michael Penix Jr. Odunze is my guy. That's what I would prefer. Ryan says, the green number 5 looks really good. Yeah, I can't wait to actually get it in the mail. Hugh, Ryan, do you remember Green Bay versus the Niners in the divisional round? Green Bay dominated that game, led all the way up until the last couple of drives. Niners only started getting back into it when Zach Tom went off with an injury in the late third. Before that, Bosa was getting no pressure after he went down. Yosh Nijman came in. Jordan Love could barely move the ball down the field. O-line depth's important. So that's what you're saying here. O-line depth is very important in the biggest games. It's also important to score points against some of the best teams in the country. Like when you have Patrick Mahomes, like do you think our weapons right now as it stands are good enough to overcome Andy Reid and the Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals? Because that's what I'm thinking. Like I understand you have to get into the playoffs to have a shot, but I want the weapons that would give me the shot to get to the Super Bowl. And with Aaron Rodgers, you're going all in for these next 2 years. I totally understand offensive line, but if you get an Odunze or a Neighbors or a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a Brock Bowers, and you combine that with the addition of a Bakhtiari and maybe a McGovern in free agency, I really like that option a lot more than drafting an offensive lineman that I have to trust Keith Carter to develop in a hurry and then hope that this guy plays like maybe 4 or 5 games this year. I think you can get O-line depth outside of round 1. Tony says, Mordecai has great RAS score, worst luck in history, followed Murray, beat out by Hurts, transfers dies well. I don't know what that means. Transfers up, gets injured. He has a great tool set. All right, yeah, that's a perfect type of late round or undrafted free agent swing. I'm on that. Oh, yeah, Bobby Woodruff. Knoble. That was the name. Question, is Aaron getting a lifetime ban? Why would Aaron get a lifetime ban? Am I like missing something here? Did I not see something? I don't think Aaron's gambling. You have to let me know. Kevin says, I wouldn't hate Odunze at 10, but I feel like we can get a similar caliber wide receiver later in the draft. I don't feel the same way about tackle. I don't know. Odunze, to me, the top 3 wide receivers are so much better than like the field or so much more of a sure thing. I feel like everyone else, you could like Brendan Rice could be, that type of receiver. Tez Walker, Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall. There's a bunch of really good receivers. I think there's inherent risk with any draft pick, and you want to minimize as much risk as possible. So I would get the best sure thing. So if you could get up for a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a Neighbors, maybe that's the route you go. I like 𝐂𝐿𝐷𝐄𝐄 personally. I would be very happy with that. Antonio, what's good, brother? Thank you so much for being a member of the first class tier of the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. After the conference, do you think we stick and pick hoping 𝐂𝐿𝐷𝐄𝐄 falls, or do you think Joe Douglas goes against his tendency and pushes it all in to get Marvin Harrison or Neighbors at number 5? So is it really against his tendency when he's traded up for Jermaine Johnson, when he's traded up for AVT? I think there's a good shot we could be not picking at 10 and making some type of move. And I think it's unlikely that we trade down because I don't think there's a team willing to come up. So I think there's a good shot the Jets are going up in this draft. I would absolutely lose my cool. I think that would be wild to see. I want to get over to some of your comment questions, but I do want to take a look at the press conferences and the questions that were asked of Douglas yesterday. I feel like that is something we should take a look at here. This is him discussing AVT and how he's potentially feeling about him moving forward. So let's listen to this. You guys give me your thoughts. So when I hear Joe Douglas talk about Alijah Vera-Tucker now, it feels like he's not going to exercise the 5th-year option. Or at least he's not sure about whether he's going to exercise the 5th-year option. And maybe that's just the right thing to say. But back at the end of the season, January 8th, I believe, was when he did his post-season press conference. He was saying AVT is a cornerstone of this offensive line. Now, maybe that's something you just say, but for him to have changed his tune so long to right now feels a little surprising to me. And you've added all these offensive pieces. Maybe they just see him as potentially expendable. I don't think that's the case. I think they still really like AVT, and I think Joe Douglas is blowing a bunch of smoke, and they're totally going to exercise his 5th-year option. Now, if you exercise AVT's 5th-year option, he's going to get $15.3 million in 2025. That is good enough to make him, I think it was the 6th highest paid guard or the 21st highest paid offensive tackle. I think that was the number that I had. Now, obviously, everyone has him penciled in for right guard because we have Morgan Moses and because we got Tyron Smith. But I feel like if you wanted to say, hey, we're not moving him for this year and he's going to play guard, and you want to put him in a different position next year because the contract aligns in a better capacity, now you're not looking for 2 tackles. You're just looking for the 1. That was one thing that I thought stood out to me in regards to Joe Douglas's presser yesterday. The other one is him talking about Brock Bowers. So I want to flip over to that so you guys can see exactly, the comments and my thinking on what he's trying to say here. So the right type of tight end can be a real weapon. That's what they're talking about. That's what he's talking about. And everyone's like, oh, man, that means Brock Bowers could potentially be in play for the Jets at number 10 overall. Obviously, we had him in this past Monday when Aaron Rodgers came back into the facility. So everyone was like hyped up on that and how that could potentially mean that the New York Jets wanted Aaron Rodgers to meet Brock Bowers. I think that's entirely possible. I don't think that's a nothing burger. We are currently the betting favorite to get the number 10 overall. Damn camera. This is super frustrating. We are currently the betting favorite to take him with the number 10 overall pick. And I would be totally fine with it based on how Aaron Rodgers has handled his yak yards in his career, especially the last 2 MVPs that he wound up getting. I think that is entirely possible. But to me, when I hear Joe Douglas say these things about Brock Bowers and the right tight end could be worth this and whatnot, I still think that's a blinking red light for Joe Douglas and the New York Jets saying, hey, look, if you want Brock Bowers, you better get in front of us at number 10. So that to me feels a little bit more like we're trying to hide our hand as to what we're going to do. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with AVT right now. I'll decide after the draft. Well, could the Jets go offensive line? Troy Fautanu is basically the AVT of this particular draft. Oh, well, tight end, it could be a Laporta, it could be a Kelce, it could be a Kittle. They're absolutely worth a first-round pick if you get that caliber tight end. Brock Bowers. Well, if you want him, you're going to have to trade in front of us because we could take him at number 10. Like, to me, when I'm putting together these little breadcrumbs and these little puzzle pieces, I get the feeling we're targeting a wide receiver. Now, the source that I have that talked to Hackett the other day said Hackett would love any of the 3 wide receivers. Really, really high in either one of them. Didn't say a whole lot about Bowers, which could definitely be, a little tip of the hand of like, oh, well, he's trying to keep it a little secret. But my understanding is they really like the 3 receivers, and they would be happy with any one of them. I prefer Odunze, and I prefer Marvin Harrison Jr. just because of the size, but that's probably not a correct way to be looking at it. Neighbors is an elite wide receiver. The speed and snappiness of his routes and everything, that could definitely be advantageous for us. And I would take any one of those 3. Wide receiver is definitely my thing, and I would be happy with Bowers too. Those would be the 4 guys that I'm kind of identifying. I'd be a little disappointed if we went O-line. I wouldn't lie. William says the whole best player available thing was cute the first few years, but if we draft another edge rusher, I'm flipping a table. Yeah, if that happens, you're going to see a very angry Ryan and probably a lot of angry other fans. Hugh says Chiefs were in the same versus the Niners, couldn't get any yards at all with Tooney out. Got very friggin' lucky with a deflected punt. Look, offensive line's important. I'm not trying to negate that. But the Chiefs also don't have any weapons, like at all. It's Kelce. And that's it. Jets have far more weapons than that, and I think that does neutralize it to some degree. Ryan says, does Neighbors have Kayvon Thibodeau's personality? Giants will be all over that. So that's actually, it's funny that you say that, because that was something that I had a discussion about with someone recently, and like on the message forums that I'm a part of. And I was like, you know what? I like Neighbors. Some of the comments he made about the Giants and like needing a quarterback and whatnot aren't wrong, but it just felt a little funky to hear a draft prospect talking about it that way. And it seems like there's a little bit of an arrogance, which I guess all receivers do kind of have to have when you're that alpha dog type of mentality. But there is a little bit of like personality traits that I don't love. Like I could see that being a little bit of a point of contention. I wouldn't be upset. It wouldn't be enough for me to not do it. But I very much would. I would give it a second thought. I would think about it at least. I do think there's something to it. Michael says they said Rodgers might get lifetime banned from the league for his business ventures. Oh, is that stupid thing that was like he? I don't think that's true. I think that's fake. You're talking about was it a THC thing or something like that? It was like someone connected him to something else. I don't think that's actually correct. Virgo, Odunze at 10. In a trade down, Brock or Thomas Jr. get Sam Hartman in the later rounds. I like Odunze at 10. I would prefer Brock in a trade down, but I don't think you can trade down and take Bowers. And I wouldn't mind Brian Thomas Jr. So Hackett said that Thomas Jr. does give him, was it him? No, it was Roman Wilson. No, it wasn't Roman Wilson. Who's the big guy from FSU? Wilson. Why am I blanking on his name right now? Whatever it is. I know that he gave Johnny Wilson. There it is. He gave Hackett Kelvin Benjamin vibes, I think was the quote there. Maybe I'm confusing it with Brian Thomas Jr. But Brian Thomas Jr. would be interesting. 4.3 speed, 1 year of production. I wouldn't be upset. If you can get me a second-round pick, maybe I'd consider it. I think if I trade down enough to where I would feel comfortable with Brian Thomas Jr., I would prefer offensive line as opposed to him, and then I would take a second-round wide receiver. Jeremy says, I'd like to see the math on what it would take to get Bowers and McConkey. What would it take? McConkey's going to go, I've seen him go like late first. I think he goes in the second round, honestly. So, I mean, you're talking about maybe trading down from 10 to get some more assets to then select Bowers at like 12, 13, and then maybe trading some picks to get up into the second round. It might be trading like 2/3 to get up that high. I don't particularly feel the need to do that. I think there's enough good wide receivers to go another route. Frank, how is our money situation? Can we still go after Bakhtiari or Boyd or safety if we need to? Yeah, there's what's known as restructures to contracts, and there's simple restructures. I don't know if it's called complicated restructures, but a simple restructure, what it is you can move money around without needing clearance by the player. Like the player doesn't have to agree to anything because you're just shifting numbers around. They're still getting the same amount of money when they're supposed to get it. It's just, a little different. The Jets can do that. The Jets could do that with Conklin. The Jets could do that with Reed. The Jets could do that with John Franklin Myers. So they can free up more space. Now, you obviously don't want to do that if you don't have to use, like if you don't need the space, you're not going to like just create a bunch of cap space just to do it, because then you are hurting yourself in the future. But the Jets can create more room. It's just, obviously, how much room are you willing to push off into the future? I would say 2 years. I've seen so much bad football. I'm cool with going all in for 2 years. You got to make 2026 suck. I think I could live with that. The only wide receiver I'm cool with taking at 10 is Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a legit dog. He blew up his ankle playing my Notre Dame, but got it taped up, came back in, and torched my Irish. You're going to have to trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you're going to have to trade up for all three. There's a shot Odunze's there, but I don't know if you risk it with the Bears sitting there at 9. Like, if you could throw a 4th-round pick or a 4th and maybe a next year's 4th to go up to number 8 to secure him, I would prefer that. Whatever wide receiver 3 is. I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. gets that far anyway. G says, I just got on. Did they talk about drafting a lineman? I didn't know where all this Bowers hype comes from. So the Bowers hype is coming from the fact that the Jets wanted Michael Mayer last year at the 15th overall pick. And they did, from what we heard rumors of, that the Jets wanted to get Jahmyr Gibbs as well, which is telling me home run threat and tight end. And that's literally what Bowers is. Bowers hit like 21 or 22 miles an hour on the field this past year. The guy is absolutely electric. So for those people that are saying like, oh, you can't take a 10 tight end this high, I don't agree. Like, I understand the hit rate is not super great, but I would argue any of the top tight ends in the league, if you knew what they would become, they would be worth it. A first-round pick, a top 10 pick. You just got to know what it is. I think the best improvement that can come to this team is more so with wide receiver than it is with tight end, but I think tight end would be a bigger increase than offensive line. Ed, greetings, Ryan. Looking good, my man. We need a wide receiver in the draft. Go Jets. Ed, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm looking good. Did a little buzz cut on the beard. Gonna have to cut the hair a little bit before the draft party. Oh, check this. I have to do an ad read. I didn't do it, but I want to try out the clothing first. Got Cuts as a sponsor. Check this out. Joggers, nice t-shirt. Giving it a test run. I want to give you guys my honest opinion on stuff. Just got it in. Very comfortable. Comfortable stuff. Too evil to hope. Are you confident the Rodgers has the protection he needs? I am. I am confident. And I think you can add more depth. And that's where I would go in free agency after the draft. I would bring in Bakhtiari. I would bring in McGovern. If you want to bring in Donovan Smith, I don't think he's super good, but if you want to, do it at the, later stages of free agency and it's just a depth guy that's going to be your like backup to your backup, I'd be okay with that. I think he takes not a whole lot. Antonio, thank you for the super chat, dude. Greatly appreciated. If we trade up and land Harrison, taking a page from Boy Green, I would lose my gosh darn bananas. Do I have my banana thing? I don't know if I got it here. Can I do it? I think I could do the banana. Yeah, lose my gosh darn bananas. I would be fine with any of the three at the top as long as it pushes Lazard down the receiving order. I'm in complete agreement with you. Lazard had 60% of the snaps last year. If I could avoid that percentage of snaps going to him and I could knock that down to like 25, I'd feel a lot better about it. I think Bowers also knocks Lazard down the list, even though he's listed as a tight end. He's going to be playing that big slot role. So I think there's 4 guys that would push Lazard further down the list. And who knows, maybe Lazard gets his act together with Rodgers too, and he's at least better than we got last year. We already paid him, so the money's kind of out the window at this point. But I appreciate the super chat, dude. All right, let's keep going through this chat. Goatman wants to trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. Andrew says, I'm still in my white tee as well. That said, pick O-line at 10. But Andrew, is this a cuts tee? I don't know. I should have my promo code so I could actually do this. I did not think to put it on. Pratt fits the West Coast offense perfectly. Pratt's a fun player to watch. Ryan, is Bakhtiari to the Jets in the summer a lock? I don't know if it's necessarily a lock. I think if he wants to start, the Chiefs are probably a really good landing spot for him. And it's a grass field as opposed to like our MetLife turf. But if no one wants him to start and everyone's concerned about his injuries, then maybe just saying like, hey, Bakhtiari, you want to come here, play with your best friend, and like make sure your best friend doesn't get smushed and you could be our tackle. I'm down for it. I would like to see it happen, honestly. I don't know if it's going to. It depends what he wants on a contract, too. Palicar, do you think it's smart to let lame duck GM go into the draft? His priorities might be different than one with security. No, not necessarily. I mean, yeah. So yes, I do think there is an issue with having a lame duck coach and a lame duck GM, but I don't think it's wrong in our context because we have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers' timeline and Joe Douglas's timeline and Robert Saleh's timeline are all in alignment. So I think you have to make a decision as a fan. Do you want the Jets to try and go for a Super Bowl, or do you want them to go back and not have the do you want them to go? What am I trying to say here? Do you want them to go for a Super Bowl, or do you want them to be safe and play for the future? Like, I want the Super Bowl. I've seen enough of this safe stuff. If you tell me I got a 2-year window with Rodgers, I would prefer to go all in with Rodgers above anything else. Huge direction. You make a fair point, but I don't think another weapon is needed, especially that high. Well, Mike Williams, him and Conklin both gone out at the end of the season, the same way that we're losing both tackles. Mike Williams not going to be healthy for the start of the season is what it sounds like. I like a home run threat. Ryan says, Odunze is being compared to Larry Fitzgerald. Why would we pass on that? If that's his comp, I'm on board about it. Giannis says, what would you trade for number 5? Probably next year's first. I think that's what it would take. I mean, if you can get up there for the second round pick next year and like the third round pick this year, that would make me feel like even better, I guess. I don't know. Were you guys able to hear? I guess you guys weren't able to hear the Douglas presser as good as I was hoping it would hear. This is what happens when I trying a few different things. Trying to simulcast, didn't get the audio fully right. That's all right. Hugh says, a line consisting of Carter Warren, Jake Hansen, Joe Tippmann, John Simpson, and Morgan Moses ain't going to cut it when it counts in January. Is there some reason why you think that Tyron Smith wouldn't be available? He hasn't missed any playoff games. Everyone keeps saying that. Rich says, Ryan, it's not too late to join team offensive lineman. Having an all-pro 10-year starter at offensive line is way more valuable than the same at tight end. Fautanu can play all over and compete for starting reps. So you can convince me on Fautanu over Bowers. I definitely lean weapon because I think these next 2 years are so much more important than whatever happens 8 years down the line. I think you can find offensive linemen in other drafts and other parts of the draft. You see other teams, they have mid-round guys starting on their offensive line. I think having a quarterback that's just not Zach Wilson is going to make our already existing offensive linemen look that much better. I don't think we have to go crazy drafting offensive linemen in the top 10 just to be like an insurance policy or a depth piece. Peter, I think that ban has to do with Rodgers' involvement with a company that sells products made with an NFL ban's ingredients. Yeah, he's not getting a lifetime ban. It's not going to happen. Frank, we are the betting favorite because no one else wants to touch him in the top 10. No, I think people realize the Jets want weapon. And I think the top 3 receivers are less likely to be at number 10. I mean, you could argue the Jets could go offensive line. I think Bowers makes a lot of sense for the Jets. I really do. Them wanting Michael Mayer last year sort of proves it to me. Rich says, Bowers looks sick. Tight end at 10 is the wrong move. If one of the tackles becomes a Pro Bowler, also puts us in a horrible position next year to overpay and have an obvious hole going into next year's draft. Why do you have to overpay, though? Because in theory, you could have Carter Warren, develop and become a starter. You could have AVT kick out to tackle, and that's fine. Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith, one of those guys might be willing to come back on a contract that's incentive laden like they did this past year. Now Morgan Moses had his already signed contract, so his is a little different. But I think you can be fine for the next 2 years. My question is, the offensive linemen that you draft, are they actually going to help you this year, or is it just an insurance policy? Like, are you only hoping to get like 30% of the snaps out of him? I feel like you can get, I would rather, if you told me I could go offensive line and then add OBJ or Boyd, or I could go Odunze or Bowers and add a Bakhtiari and a McGovern, I'm taking the weapon. Tim says, Chargers at 5 is such an interesting pick for us, really looking like it's wide receiver or Bowers with the possibility of trading up. So I think the Jets are going weapon, like I've said. I think the Chargers is an interesting pick because if the Cardinals stick and pick at 4 and they go Marvin Harrison Jr., then I think there's a good chance that the Chargers are looking to trade out. And if the Vikings want to come up, I think that's the preferred route that the Chargers would like. They'd want to get those 2 first-round picks and slide down, still get an offensive lineman or a wide receiver at number 11. I would say they'd probably go O-line at 11 and then wide receiver at 23 in that capacity, or if they go that route. If the quarterback, like let's say the Vikings trade up to 3, like this is how I could see it happening. Caleb Williams, and then at 2, you're talking about either Jaden Daniels or Drake May. And I think whichever one falls to 3, I think the Patriots are going to trade out. I really do. When you start thinking about it and you say, all right, well, they saw what the Dolphins did. They rebuilt their entire team with just a few crazy trades that netted them, monster returns. I think you can look at that and say that's the way we want to go. Brissett is fine for a year, maybe 2. Or you like a quarterback a little bit later and you still get the haul of draft picks. I think that's entirely possible. If Jaden Daniels makes it to 3, I think the Raiders come up to 3 to draft him. If Drake May makes it to 3, I think the Vikings come up and they draft him at number 3. Then you're looking at number 4, number 5. Obviously the Broncos aren't trading up. For the Chargers, you're probably hoping Jaden Daniels falls to 3. So that way the Raiders give up a bunch of picks, go up to 3. And then you can trade with the Vikings if they want J.J. McCarthy in front of the Giants or something like that. But trading up to 5 is interesting. Peter, draft Fautanu, extend AVT, and all the O-line problems go away. How hard is that to understand? I would really like to extend ABT. You know, give him a 3-year contract this year, next year, and the year after, and you say, hey, let's average out your cap hits. Let's you know, bring it down a little bit. We'll give you a slightly more guaranteed money, but it's not going to hurt us quite as much. And then we'll give you incentives that if you're healthy and you hit them like we think you can, it'll be much easier. I'd like to see that. I would love to extend ABT. I would exercise his 5th-year option. Lewis, at this point, feels like the pick is going to be Bowers or Odunze. I would be happy with both if they are utilized by Hackett. O-line is still a concern in my opinion. Would love Malik Washington in the later rounds. Yeah, I would double dip. If you get Bowers, I would take another receiver at some point in the draft. You get Odunze and you want to get a slot receiver. Malachi Corley would be really, really interesting to get, or Malik Washington. I feel like either of those two guys would be able to take advantage of these new kickoff rules too. And Malachi Corley being a former running back, there's a lot of like gadgetness to him that is intriguing, to say the least. Timothy, do you want to see more Brownlee and Gibson? Not particularly. I don't want to have to rely on them. So I do want to see more of them. I want to see them in preseason. I'm not sold that they're going to be on the roster necessarily. I think Gibson may have a better shot of sticking, depending on what the Jets do in the draft. Like Odunze may make Brownlee a little more expendable at that point. But I would like to keep the young guys around, let them grow. I don't want to rely on them as the weapons going into this year. Antonio, thank you for the super chat, dude. Says receiving order if we get a wide receiver in the first would be Garrett Wilson and then the rookie, then Mike Williams, Conklin, Brees, and then mix in Lazard or whoever else. I understand the want for O-line, but plenty of free agency still for depth. Antonio, I'm on the same page with you. I would even argue that Brees might be ahead of Conklin in that pecking order. Anyone that can really be that home run threat that anytime they touch the ball, they just create silly amounts of yak and could take it the distance at any time. And you look at Rodgers' last MVP in Green Bay, and he relied heavily on the yak yardage. I think it was like 55 or 56% of his overall yards were all from yak. And I know Nania had a really good article about it from Jets X Factor. And I was already, team weapon, and that just sort of reinforced my thought process of either a Bowers or, Neighbors has some crazy yak ability. Literally any of the receivers. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., I'd have to go back and look. I feel like he might have had like the least amount of yak of the top 3. But I could be wrong. No, you know what? Maybe I'm thinking of breaking tackle. I think I'm thinking of missed tackles. I think that's what it is. Any one of the 3 would be solid in terms of yak and getting additional yardage after the catch. Then Rodgers, you can neutralize some of the pass rush. If Rodgers is getting the ball out of his hands in like 2 seconds flat, I think Aaron Rodgers' time to throw is like 2.4 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. And the Jets O-line held to like close to that last year. And Zach just held onto the ball so long. So I think our O-line is going to look better with Rodgers. I think you can get the ball out faster with guys that get open really fast. So like you probably lean more of a Neighbors and a Bowers as getting open fast near the line of scrimmage. But neutralizing a pass rush is just as good as having a good offensive line, in my opinion. Rich says, look at Fontenot's combine workout. His movement is crazy. He can play most every spot on the O-line and is extremely valuable. I'm not against Fontenot. If you can trade down, that would be my top pick. If we go O-line, he is my top pick. I mean, maybe there's a world where 3 wide receivers go and Bowers, like someone trades in front of us for Bowers. And then you got to go O-line at that point. That would kind of suck. I don't want to be forced into O-line. I would like to trade down and go O-line if that's the case. But I don't. I'm more on team weapon, and I'm more to like score all the points. That's where I want to go. Peter says, the turf at MetLife demands guys who could step in right away and play well, which is why I think you go with a Bakhtiari and a McGovern as opposed to a rookie that's going to need time to develop. G. Lloyd, quarterback, set up the future for once. Draft the best quarterback. Let him sit and learn for as long as Rodgers is here. All other positions are filler. Try to be good organization for more than 1 year. I understand that line of thinking. I don't think Joe Douglas and the Jets are going to understand that line of thinking. I think when they told Rodgers or when they recruited Rodgers, They made a conscious decision to say, hey, we're going to go all in for you, and we're going to push all the chips in. We're going to give you the Tom Brady treatment that he got down in Tampa Bay. We're going to give you the Matthew Stafford treatment, the Peyton Manning treatment. We're going to go all in and surround you and try to win you a Super Bowl so you can win us a Super Bowl. That's what I see happening. G. Lloyd really wants that quarterback. I'm cool with drafting a quarterback. I just don't want one in the first round. Because you're talking about getting quarterback 5, maybe, and you're not playing this guy for the next 2 years. Like, this needs to be a player that you have to be able to utilize. Antonio Lazard, better with Rodgers, but still would feel better with him pushed down. Receiving order, boom, 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 boom. Yep, great comment. Duplicating the, I scrolled back up after your super chat. So just catching stuff here. Rich, 2-year window means players drafted this year matter for next year. Take the tackle, take the tackle. Now, what if there's a situation where they like the development of Carter Warren and they want to move AVT out to tackle due to his 5th-year option? Now you don't need a tackle at all. And who's to say Bakhtiari, Tyron Smith, or Morgan Moses wouldn't want to come back for one more run at a Super Bowl? I think it's possible. I don't think you have to go with the O-line in the first round. Mike D. Ryan, so rough estimate, how many people are going to be at the draft party? Well, from our group, I think it's going to be like, it's north of 60. The room we kind of have like this, I guess it's like an L, sort of. It's like a boomerang shape. There's like a really big chunk of area that holds like, I think it's 50 seated in one spot. And then like there's other, connecting parts or like high top tables that you can like stand around and stuff. It's going to be good. It's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. Got some cool people coming. Excited to meet everyone in person. Rich says, in theory, yes, but O-line has crippled our team for far too long. If you think there's a 10-year starter, Pro Bowl level player there, take him, fought now, can play guard and tackle. I understand that. I just don't think the Jets are going to do that. Hugh says, Ryan, you're acting like Morgan Moses and John Simpson are better players than a blue chip tackle prospect. No, not at all. Not at all. I think there's offensive linemen that are better than the offensive linemen we have right now. And I think their ceilings are definitely higher than the ceilings we currently have. Morgan Moses, I think, is going to stay healthy, and I think he's above average at worst. And I think Tyron Smith is all pro if he stays healthy. And generally speaking, he's healthy when it matters the most. So if you're comfortable with like a Carter Warren or a Bakhtiari backing up one of our offensive linemen, then I would prefer that with the elite weapons. This is the type of draft that I'm okay passing on best player available to get the most impactful player that can help us this year. And I feel like getting Lazard off the field and going with a weapon is exactly that. I think that's getting the most out of your first overall draft pick. And I think Bowers is going to see a ton of snaps too. Like if you do either one, wide receiver or tight end. TV and Sleep says, if the Jets have a winning record but miss the playoffs, or they make it in the playoffs but they have a loss in the first round with a terrible game, do people get fired? I think it really depends on how it looks. Like if someone gets hurt and that's a big part of why the Jets lose, like let's say, Brees or Garrett goes down and like the offense just kind of crumbles, or like Rodgers is seriously hampered by like a nagging kind of injury, I think they'll come back for another year. If the Jets are fully healthy and we just get fucking bounced, then I think there's going to be some reassessing that goes on. But as long as Rodgers wants to come back, I don't think you blow up the regime. I think you bring everyone back for another year and you say, okay, look, we're going to run it back. Rodgers really dictates what we do with a lot of our stuff moving forward. And I would prefer to have Rodgers here and continue. Like if he wants to play 4 or 5 years, let's fucking go. Like I'm about it. But if that's the commitment that he's going to have, then I think you could also open the door for a new coach if he wants. But I think a lot of it's going to hinge on what Rodgers wants and how they feel. Like I do think Saleh and Douglas can both be good together with a good quarterback. I mean, this team is so much better than what it was just 4 or 5 years ago. Hugh says, when you did mock drafts last year, position of need for the Texans was everywhere. I don't think I know what you mean. PFF shredded the Texans with that. don't think everywhere was actually wearing. I think it was opposite. Oh, they need help everywhere is what you were saying. The Texans could use use help everywhere. There's a lot of teams like that. I feel like the Cardinals are kind of like that this year. Green Bay been notorious in recent years for having no dudes who could get yak, so I'm not sure you got your numbers right with that at all. So I'll pull up, I don't know if I could find it real quick, but let me see if I can get it. I don't think I bookmarked it. Nania had a good tweet. Let's see. God, this is a while ago now. Bear with me, I'll get it, because I do want to bring it up because it is an interesting little factoid. All right, I'll drop it on the screen so we can take a look at it. All right, I guess I could have put this on the share screen one, but we'll do it this way. All right, so this was in regards to Bauer's and his play. So Bauer's greatest strength is his yak. That would fit tremendously alongside Rodgers, who has transitioned into a quick-passing, yak-reliant quarterback in the late stages of his career. Considering in his 2021 MVP season, Rodgers ranked 26th out of 31 qualified quarterbacks in air yards per completion, 5.3 yards per attempt. But fourth in yak per completion, 5.9. Rodgers gained 52.7% of his passing yards via yak, the fourth highest rate. Rodgers' athleticism and reliance on mobility were already declining. Now that he is coming off a torn Achilles and is approaching 40 years old, he is likely going to become more of a pocket-bound field general who relies on quick passes. This is why it is vital for the Jets to load up on yak talent in their skill group room. They have two high-level yak weapons in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, but that's it for the time being. Bowers would give them a third yak monster, one at three different positions. Bauer's slot versatility also creates plenty of unique options for the Jets' offense. In 2023, Bowers ran 48% of his routes from the slot and just 38% from in-line. This is appealing for the Jets in 2024 because it would allow Tyler Conklin to still have a featured role as the primary tight end while Bauer slides into the quasi-wide receiver 3 and draws mismatches. It creates some intriguing lineup possibilities. The Jets could throw out 12 personnel, that's one running back, 2 tight end, 2 wide receivers, that features Wilson and Williams on the outside, Bowers in the slot against a safety or a linebacker, Conklin in line, and Hall in the backfield. With Bauer's slot skills, it's essentially a 3 wide receiver look, but his labeling as a tight end will force the defense into heavy personnel packages, giving him a matchup advantage. So that's more what I'm talking about. So I was off on my numbers a little bit. It wasn't 56, it was 52.3, I think was what that number was. Or 52.7. Aaron Rodgers is relying on yak a lot more at this stage of his career, and I think that's totally fine to do. I think when you look at how, just even Breece in general, like I said it with Tom Brady all the time. Tom Brady throws the ball, he is a quick slant, throws the ball, gets the ball in his playmaker's hands, and now you just have to make a DB miss. Breece Hall, with the fluidity that he has when he runs and the strength he has to break through tackles, would be just incredible on the outside. That's why he's such a good receiving back. He's just impossible to take down. Bowers, to me, is of that similar type of mold. You get him the ball quickly in space, and his speed is just so much faster than a linebacker. He's bigger than corners and safeties. I think he's going to be a problem, and especially when you eliminate the hip drop tackle, like now it's almost a penalty to tackle him. Sometimes. It's only like 1% of the tackles that went on in the NFL this past year were hip drop, but it could... How many were hip drop tackles that wouldn't have been called? I don't know if everyone's gone through every play and every tackle. I'm sure someone probably has. I don't know. I like the yak side of things, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to benefit from it. I think any quarterback you bring in is going to benefit from it. If you're like, hey, I just have to throw this ball real quick to my playmaker, and he's just got to make a dude miss on the outside, let's do it. People are trolling with the JJ stuff, or y'all actually think he goes top 10. I do think JJ is going to go top 10. I think when there's that much smoke around a player, I would be very surprised. I mean, heck, I could see Harbaugh trading out at number 5 as the Chargers, drop back to any team that wants a quarterback, and them coming up for a top 5 pick, because now that makes Harbaugh look good, because he's got, hey, my guy, won a national championship, is a 25-1 starter or whatever, and he went top 5 in the draft. Like, that's just more credentials for Harbaugh too. I think JJ is going to go. I think his floor is the Giants at 6. I think if he's there at 6, I could see him being the pick for the Giants. Robert, play around with AVT and risk another injury. Leave him at one position. I do want to leave him at one position. I do think there's a situation in 2025 where he could be a tackle, though. I think it depends how you utilize him. They haven't even, I don't know if they've come out and said he's like definitively a guard. I think they're going to put your best 5 offensive linemen out in front of him, and it just sort of makes sense to pencil him in at right guard because of John Simpson being at left guard and Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith being tackles. But like AVT being the break glass in case of emergency tackle is kind of okay with me. I do prefer to bring in Bakhtiari as a backup and keep AVT at guard. I think he could be all pro at guard. Kevin says, if we are looking for a developmental quarterback, I'd rather wait till the late rounds and grab Devin Leary. He has a familiar last name. Oh, Leary. Especially because the D, if it's like D Leary, it's the D almost looks like an O. Get old Leary. I love it. Hugh says, you said, will the O-line you draft make an impact this year, suggesting you think they may not beat out Moses or Simpson? They could beat out Moses or Simpson, but I think the impact of that offensive lineman beating out Moses or Simpson is like, you say you're going from here to like here. Like, okay, cool. And you got him and he's on a cheap contract. But if you upgrade from Lazard, you're going from here to like big leap up. I think you can, I think the best use of assets is to get the most increased production out of your players on your team and who can make this team better. I think an offensive weapon is going to stand you a better chance against Kansas City and against Buffalo and Cincinnati and the Ravens. Like, you're going to have to compete. You're going to have to score points. And I think weapon is definitely my preferred route. Tinstar says, we spent the entire 2023 season complaining about the offensive line, and because of a few Band-Aids, we should ignore the O-line because of a weapon. No, we added 3 offensive linemen this offseason. And we're getting AVT back. We're getting like 4 offensive linemen back on this roster. And I want to bring in Bakhtiari and McGovern. Like, I very much want to continue adding players to this offensive line. But like, Odunze, Neighbors, or Marvin Harrison Jr. are drastically better than any wide receiver that's out there on the market right now. Like, you want to overpay Odell or overpay Boyd? I like Boyd, but like, there's a big gap between that and some of the other guys. I feel like you can get offensive linemen at this point for depth for way cheaper, and I think you'll get a better return on your investment with wide receiver. Hype says there are other players in the draft that have 4 or 5 position flexibility. They need to be developed, but weapon at 10 is the smartest move. I agree, Hype. And I think you look at Cooper Beebe. I think you can look at, I think Christian Haynes has some, Haynes, I think. The guy from UConn. I think he's got some positional flexibility. Mahogany, interior guy. Hey, God bless me. Bless you, thank you. I need that sound drop. The quinine. Let's see. Hype says midseason, if Moses is playing well, he will get an extension and Carter Warren will be developing behind Tyron Smith for left tackle. I think it's totally open to bringing either one or both tackles back for next year. I think you just keep pushing stuff off. Like, I'm cool with taking it on the chin in 2026. I think you probably can't retain all your young guys realistically, but if you're going all in right now while you have them, I think that is the smart move. Rodgers got great yak during his MVP seasons. That may not be because of the talent. It's making the right reads. It could be. I mean, Devontae Adams obviously getting a lot of that. I think the running backs probably got a lot of that. And then I guess Lazard probably got some of it. I don't know. I'm just going off what Nani is saying. I read stuff, and then I make decisions based on that. Bernard, is A-Rod injury prone in his career? No, not at all. That's why I was so pro 2 quarterbacks going into the season, because I felt like Aaron Rodgers is always healthy. Same thing with Derek Carr. No matter which one you went with, both guys almost miss no time whatsoever. And I'd rather roll the dice on an extra offensive lineman than having a third quarterback. Because if you get down to quarterback 3, you're going to just basically be handing the ball off to Garrett Wilson, or handing the ball off to Breece Hall and like short passes to Garrett Wilson anyway. And I feel like you can get that from a lot of different quarterbacks. That's sort of why I lean Jordan Travis. I like the idea of IRing him, giving him a true redshirt year to learn behind Tyrod and Rodgers. But I would gamble on Rodgers staying healthy. I would. I think that's the right move. Timothy says, me personally, I would like to get a weapon at 10 and trade into the second round for offensive line. I'm cool with moving up for O-line. I feel like if you can get 2 really rock-solid players in this draft, you're feeling pretty good. If that's a weapon and an offensive lineman that gives you some depth, cool. I could see another situation where you get Bowers or you get Odunze or you get Neighbors or whatever in the first round, and then now you go 3rd, 4th, 5th. You know, if you feel like you can get Bakhtiari and McGovern, I don't necessarily need to go O-line in the draft when you're framing it as a year-to-year type thing. I know Blewett's kind of the same mindset as well, where you just try to build the most explosive team right now that can get you the most, get you the furthest. And I feel like a developed offensive lineman in Bakhtiari or in Donovan Smith or in McGovern might be a better move with our assets. Because I don't want to think long-term right now. I'm very much year to year. And I agree with you. I would definitely go weapon. Rico says, I think that mismatch is just as important for Breece. Imagine running out of 11 personnel, but instead of Gibson in the slot, you got Bowers blocking for you. Bowers, like, being able to kick into fullback, like, you might be able to make Bowers a more than 2 position type player, but like Bowers, Malachi Corley, Malik Washington. Like, there's some guys with a little bit of positional flexibility that can create some mismatches or maybe have some return game potential. I feel like there's so much value in that. Any players that you can add to your team that with minimal touches. Like, if you say this guy's going to get 4, 5 opportunities a game, but in those 4 or 5 opportunities, anytime he touches the ball could go the distance. That is so incredibly important. I mean, how many times did we have 1-play drives with Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson, just snaps off a long, takes a short route and just takes off. That's what I want to see. I want high percentage throws or high percentage completions or high percentage, opportunities, and then let your skill players make plays. That's the play. Ryan says, great article, makes tons of sense on the yak. Conklin gives you no yak. Conklin got a lot of his yardage in garbage time. So I think he looks a little bit better from a statistical standpoint than he actually played the last few years, but I think he's a really good tight end. I would say he's above average tight end. I don't think you need a tight end. I think he's going to look really good with Rodgers. And I think he can give you the third down type plays where it's hey, I got to get 3rd and 8, and this guy's just going to go across the middle or be in the flat and take a big shot from someone, and he'll be able to keep moving. Bowers, on the other hand, you can kind of lob a pass to near the line of scrimmage, and he could just friggin' take off. Has Corley met with the Jets? He's considered a high yak player. I don't know. Let me pull up Dom's list. I don't think Malachi Corley was on this list. Yeah, they did. He was a top 30 visit. Top 30 visit and Senior Bowl. I could definitely see the Jets taking him. I'd be pumped with that. Jets need a returner. You don't, in an ideal situation, you're not really putting Breece or, Garrett back there to return kicks. Now, if the injury rate for these kickoffs is not as high as it, was, if you're telling me I can get extra touches for Breece or extra touches for Garrett or extra touches for some type of weapon back there, I'm on it. I think it's more in like the all-in type nature of a game. Like if you're like, I wouldn't put Breece back there for the opening kickoff, but if you're in the fourth quarter and you're like, hey, I got to get, I'm in a situation where I need a touchdown, I feel like you'll see Tyreek Hill back there at times. I feel like Cordero Patterson was signed like 2 days after that rule change came into effect. Teams are going to position themselves better for the special teams. And Corley would be a very, very interesting grab. I would be very excited with that. Darren says, Conklin greater than Bowers. They're different. They're definitely different. Rome Odunze is destined to be a Jet. Mike, the stat guy. I love it. I liked your mock draft the other day with Gunny. I enjoyed that. I liked most of it. There were a few players I didn't really know towards the end of the draft. I liked Jordan Travis. I liked... Did you guys get Brian Thomas Jr. in the trade down? Is that what it was? I think that's what it was. I like Odunze at 10. Or even a trade up to 8 for minimal trade compensation. Darren says, Conklin is going to break out this year. No tight end in the first round. I'd rather draft another edge. No. If we go defense in the first round, I'm going to be so mad. Yeah, if you trade down far enough and, like, you can convince me that, like, the offensive linemen there aren't great and you want to get, like, some stud on defense, God, that would really be a kick in the pants. But I hope we don't go that far down that I would start thinking that direction. I'm down with weapon. I don't look at Bowers as just a tight end. Look at him as wide receiver 3. It'll make you sleep easier at night. Stat Guy says Conklin was number 13 in receiving yards last year with Zach, Boyle, and Simeon. He's top 5 with Rodgers. Mike, do you know how much of Conklin's receiving yards were in like garbage time situations, like when we're getting blown out and he's just getting like an extra 50 yards? It felt like that did happen a few times. It's almost like phantom yardage, kind of like Blake Bortles used to get, where he would be like 4,500 yards or whatever his passing yards were in those few years in Jacksonville. And it was like, wow, he's pretty solid, but it's like all because the Jaguars are getting blown out. And they wind up getting a nice little boost in garbage time. That's sort of where I feel some of Conklin's yards came from. And this is someone who really likes Conklin. I'm a big fan of Conklin. I don't have to go tight end. I very much want wide receiver. But I would be on board with Bowers if he's the pick. Hugh says, maybe Mike LaFleur was scheming dudes open all the time, and the yak was... Matt LaFleur was right there, but there are no dudes in Green Bay who could get their own yak by beating dudes. So yeah, maybe it's schemed open, or maybe Rodgers is helping with it. I don't know how much Rodgers was changing stuff and how much LaFleur had in like the success of Rodgers' late stage of his career. I guess there's some degree of concern for that. Squishy says, my rankings for what I'm hoping for. Neighbors or Odunze would be your number 1 option. Offensive tackle, Alt Fashanu Fuaga, Talise Funga, Fought Now are all fine. 3, trade down and take best player available for Bowers. I would say Alt and Fought Now are probably my 2 offensive linemen that I really like. I'd be fine with Talise Funga as well. Fashanu, for some reason, I'm not like a big fan of. And it's not necessarily the play style. There's just something weird about his hands being like wildly small. I don't know if that has any impact on being an offensive lineman. Like, I have no clue. But when you look at the rest of the offensive linemen and the size of the hands they have, and then you look at, I think he's like 9-inch hands. Or was it 8.5-inch hands? It was like really small. I just feel like there's something to like outliers. As far as trade down, I would say wide receiver is number 1 for me, and then trade down is number 2. It depends how many players on the board that you like. Like if it's Bowers and like all the offensive linemen and you can get back to 12, 13, 14, then that would be my preferred route. I do really like that. But yeah, wide receiver, high up there with me. Duncan says, I'm not sure I agree with that analysis. Didn't Green Bay take on a LaFleur offense and these are yak? Heard Jets are moving towards power offense. I do agree. I think that's probably where they're going to head. I think when you look at John Simpson and you look at Morgan Moses, you're relying on Breece Hall and just like block the dude in front of you from the offensive line. And I think that'll simplify the offensive line. I think that does make things a little bit easier for them. I feel like there was some confusion on stunts and blitz pickup last year. Some of that could be coming from Zach, maybe not making the right calls. We had a revolving door on the offensive line anyway, and young centers across the board. So there could be some confusion there. But with a power offense, I think you could absolutely take advantage of yak guys, especially if you're not super confident in your offensive line. You're going to need to rely on Breece on a screen, Breece in the flat, Garrett on a quick slant, or a Bowers potentially, scooting out after a chip on an edge rusher. What's up, Andrew? Andrew says, just hopping in. Not sure what you're talking about, but I'm here for it. P.S. Happy 420. Yeah, happy holidays. If you guys want to support the channel, head down into the description. Crescent Canna, THC seltzer. Let me see if I can get that to focus in. Little 10 milligram seltzer. I got a 50 milligram in there, too. I have learned, though, if I drink the 50 milligram seltzer while I'm streaming, by the time I'm done streaming, I'm like at cruising altitude. And then they actually just sent me these. I said I wanted to try the Sleepy Time gummies. So they sent those out. I genuinely really like the Crescent Canna stuff. I'm a big fan. I've experimented with a bunch of stuff, but theirs is top notch. And they deliver it to your house. It comes stupid fast, too. I like it. G. Lloyd says, I wish we could focus more on quarterback in this conversation. This team desperately needs to have a plan in place. Comments in the room. We can't do what we've been doing. So Lloyd, I do want to take quarterback, and whether you go Michael Pratt or Jordan Travis in the middle rounds, I feel like developing them slowly behind Rodgers is the move you want to make. And then in 2 years' time, when Rodgers is gone, you have 2 years left on whoever's contract it is. And then you have that guy, when you're eating all the dead cap space on a cheap rookie contract, you give him the opportunity to maybe compete against a very low-cost veteran in a season that your roster is probably going to see some high turnover. So you're probably going to have a bad draft pick or a good draft pick because you're going to have probably a bad season the year after Rodgers. And if that's the case, you're going to have a much higher pick in whatever year's draft that's going to be. And then I would argue then, because of the foundation that you've laid over the course of these few years, I guess depending on how much you mortgage of the future, I would be more than okay giving up multiple picks to come up and get a quarterback in that draft, while also giving us, maybe not like I want a player for the now in the early rounds while we develop someone behind the scenes, and then let that guy compete against the veteran in the future while we eat our dead cap and then move up for a quarterback if Jordan Travis or Michael Pratt doesn't work out at that time. And then maybe they're just a career backup, which is totally fine with me. Henry says the Eagles at 22 are a pretty clear trade back spot. They want Terrion Arnold, and they have picks 22, 50, and 53. Yeah, that's kind of where I've identified if the Jets are going to trade down. I think they're going to have to move down pretty far. Unless you can convince the Broncos or Raiders to come up for who I think is going to have to be quarterback 5. I think it's more likely the Jets stick and pick at 10. But if you come down with the Eagles and you say, hey, we can get, if you can get 2 second-round picks for them to come all the way up, that would be cool as hell. I think you're probably looking at one of those and then maybe a future pick. I would be on board with a trade down. I want the highest impact player at the start of this whole thing. Rich says, I'm team offensive line. I'd be stoked for Odunze at 10. I think he's legit, but I would be upset with Bowers over offensive tackle. It's fair. Rico says, Cooper Beebe, Tanner Bortolini, Dominic Puny, Mason McCormick all have positional versatility. I like it. R&R, weaponize. Get your future left tackle next year. Yeah. Rico. He got his collarbone broken years ago and had an Achilles last year. That's the only time I can remember he's missed extended time, talking about Rodgers. Yeah, he doesn't really miss time, historically. Jack Connolly, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated, dude. I don't see a comment associated with it, but if I see it, I will throw it on screen. Oh, no, there it is. There's your other comment. Thank you again. Double super chat. I'm team weapon, but I love May. I think he's going to be a stud. Any world he falls, I'd take him and let him sit behind Rodgers. I just don't. I don't want I don't want a quarterback in the first round. That's I guess that's no different than other people who want, you know, other positions that might be. I would almost no, I don't want a quarterback. I don't. I want him to go earlier than us so other players fall down to us. I want like the top non-quarterback in this draft to fall to the Jets. That's wide receiver for me. I very much want the wide receiver. Anisha says, in a hypothetical world, say Penix and Odunze is available at 10. What do we do? It's Odunze for me. Penix should be available at 10. I could see him going in the mid-teens to like Seattle or the Rams at 19. I could see, you know, a world where the Raiders or the Broncos want him as well. If you can get someone to trade up, I think that's interesting, but I would prefer Odunze. I like Penix, but I would not take Penix in the first round. Not for the Jets, at least. If you want to have, you know, the Giants trade up and get him, I think Penix to the Giants makes a crazy ton of sense at the end of the first round if they trade in from the second round. That would be the play. You just can't guarantee that he's going to be there. I think the Giants could go quarterback at early in this draft if one of the top 4 falls to 6. Curly, I yak in my toilet after exceeding drinking watching this team. Yeah, I was drinking so much watching this team, I was like, I got to switch to THC stuff. The THC seltzers have been legit. Save your liver. I saw a highlight earlier of Bowers taking a handoff for 70-yard touchdown. Dude, Bowers is a freak. He is a home run threat anytime he touches the ball. Like, that's why you should not be upset if we take him. I understand the moniker of tight end in the first round, but like, I think that's overblown. Tinstar, by the end of this coming season, I hope we don't have to bring out the receipts on some of you guys. Are you talking about the chat or are you talking about me? It's all right. I'm team offensive weapon. Team weapon. If they go O-line, I won't be upset, but I very much want the weapon. JJ going to drop and the Jets are going to draft him. No, they're not. Not going to happen. I'd be absolutely floored if that happened. Rico, part of me wonders if Conklin got those yards because he was the only viable receiving target outside of Wilson and Hall. That's entirely possible, but we had so few sustained drives. Like, I feel like most of our drives, if you looked at what our average amount of plays were per drive, it had to be like 6. I saw a stat yesterday that was incredibly sad. Since 2006, when air yards started being tracked, Zach Wilson and the New York Jets have the least amount of air yards per on all passing touchdowns. So if you accumulate all the air yards, and the air yards is from where you throw it to where it's being caught, and then the yak yards don't count after that. The Jets had 36 total yards on passing touchdowns for air yards. The second closest was in 2008. Christian Ponder had 72. So we had literally half of that. I think with a few more offensive snaps, we're going to see a lot more production from a whole bunch of players. So Conklin may have been elevated slightly in comparison to the rest of our players because our team, didn't have good quarterback play. But I think Conklin is a good tight end, and I think he's going to do really well with Rodgers. I would be totally fine with adding Bowers too. You seem to really like Odunze. What about him do you like more than the lower ranked guys? I like his size. I like his personality. I like that he has the relationship with Garrett Wilson. I think the contested catch rate is really nice. I think the deep ball catches is really nice. Now, Washington did have a lot more passing opportunities in that offense than maybe some of the other guys. So there's probably some degree of, what's that called? Standard deviation, I guess. I would say I like Brian Thomas Jr. I like a lot of the second round wide receivers. Like I think I like Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson, maybe a little less high on Tez Walker. I like Brendan Rice. Like I like a lot of receivers later on. I just think that if you're going to stick and pick, I would prefer the best possible wide receiver you can get. And I would be all right with moving up a little bit to go get it. NY Keys Wiss says Jeremy Ruckert should convert himself to a tackle or a guard back if we do end up getting Bowers or Odunze. I wouldn't mind him being like a fullback, if I'm being honest. Tinstar. Olu has only one issue to me, and that is he has no positional flexibility. Every other player you can mention has positional flexibility. That's kind of why Olu's a little bit lower on my list. I had my top big board, and Olu, I think, was number 10 is what I had him on there. And I'd be fine with him. I'd almost put Amarius Mims over him, though, because of like perceived positional flexibility and upside. And that's not to say that like Olu would be a bad draft pick at all. He just doesn't have the flexibility that I like. Jack says, what's up, Ryan? Been a while, but I'm team weapon or trade down for a weapon or O-line, whoever you got higher on your board, but in some weird world where, oh yeah, talking about May. No, Jack, please don't do that. Yeti says, Brees, Garrett, Conklin combined for roughly 3,400 total yards. I'm not a stats guy, but so Garrett had over 1,000. Did he? I don't know if he got to 1,100. Brees had almost 1,600 by himself. So that's 2,500, 2,600, 2,700, right? And then Conklin would have had, is that 700 yards if I'm doing my math? Yeah, I mean, I think Rodgers is going to break our passing record for yardage in a season. I think he's going to break our passing touchdown record for a season as well. Even if this offense runs through Brees Hall, I think we're good enough to have success through the air. My concern would be what happens when you go up against the Chiefs? What happens when you go up against the Bengals? What happens when you go up against the Ravens? Do you have enough firepower if they shut down Garrett? Like, do you feel confident in, like, maybe your offensive line isn't as good and they lock down Garrett, and now, there's some degree of concern there. Now, maybe that's me talking myself into offensive line now, but I think I'm definitely team weapon. Mike the Stat Guy says multiple teams offered a trade for Sutton. Sutton was who I wanted. I wanted Sutton over Mike Williams. I think Sutton could definitely end up in Buffalo. I could see him, go to a whole bunch of different potential landing spots. Obviously, wherever Denver can get the most trade return for him, I think, is where he's ultimately going to end up. His contract is so good. If I were Denver, I wouldn't want to move him. I would actually even guarantee his next 2 years at, I think it's $13 million a year or $14 million a year, over letting him leave. Papa says, I sound like a dick. I just want a Conklin jersey. I like background guys. Loved Michael Carter. Liked Uzama. Guess I'll go Reed if we get Bowers. So I really like Reed, but I think Reed's going to be gone after this season, so I'm not going to go that route. I want my jersey to last a little bit longer. I think Garrett's here at least the next 2 years, and I could be excited for that, for those seasons. I think the safest jerseys you could get are probably Sauce. I think Sauce is like a 10-year player here. I think JJ could very much be a 10-year player here, especially in the situation where, is Brees going to be here in 3 or 4 more years? I don't know. Running backs are tough when you start looking at them from a longevity perspective on their roster. I would like to believe the Jets would re-sign Brees after this year and kind of lower the cap hit by still having him on a rookie deal for the 1 year, maybe adding some void years in the future. I'd love to keep him, for the next few years. I think he's Christian McCaffrey. That's the type of player I think, Brees could be. But for me, I think Sauce is probably the safest jersey to get right now. Obviously, Quinnen with the new deal last year. I don't think you can go wrong with a Rodgers deal, especially if he winds up winning a Super Bowl. Kincaid is Gronk 2.0. I think Kincaid's a lot smaller than Gronk. Wasn't Gronk 6'6" or 6'7"? I think Kincaid's closer to 6'3" or 4". NY Jets Superfan says Bowers was the best tight end in college for 3 straight years. Yeah, he won the Mackey Award winner 2 years in a row. I think that's the only time that's been done. Hennessy says Team Rome here. Hennessy, did Check your email. Did I wind up? I don't know if I sent you it. Well, I definitely sent you the email. I just don't know if you responded. Yeah, check your email. I emailed you twice. You're coming to the draft party. I got to get your shirt size. So email me back. I'm going to send them out. I'm sending them out via dropship. So I don't know if I would be surprised if it got to you by the time the draft party got at this point. I emailed some people 3 times. So if your name's Rich, Perry, Sean, or Gabriel, check your emails if you're coming to the party. I'm trying to send you a shirt. Bill says Bowers is a horrible pick. What don't you like about him? Is it just that he's a tight end, or is there something about his game you don't like? Juan says, wait, the Jets need a quarterback too. Yeah, we need a quarterback, but that's all right. Hugh says, Kincaid, Laporta, Musgrave, Mayer, and Kraft, man, last year's tight end class was historic. Yeah, and the Jets were going to take Mayer in the first round, and he was a second-round player. This year's tight end class, it's like Bowers, and then I think it's the tight end from Texas is the other one. The Jets have met with a few tight ends. According to Dom's list, the Jets have met with A.J. Barner, Theo Johnson, Dalen Hooker, and Brock Bowers, and they met with Theo Johnson 4 different times. So I think tight end is clearly on their thought process. Yeti says, what low-key guy, Tippmann Quincy? What low-key guy? I don't want to get the same one as everyone else, but it's $175. So I never get the Vapor jerseys. I go with like the $130 jerseys. Now, maybe since I'm doing content, I should say I'm going with the Vapor jersey. But I like saving a little bit of money. As far as jerseys go, I do like the little bit of an obscure type pick. If they exercise AVT's 5th-year option, maybe you lean on him a little bit. The fact that this could be his last year potentially, if they don't exercise it, makes it a little bit scarier. I have a Mangold jersey. I almost wanted to go Morstead. I really like what Morstead means to this team, and I like him as a person. Like him firing back at Mecole Hardman, I thought was really cool from a special teams player. I was a punter in high school too, so there's like a little bit of a connection for me for that. I've always liked offensive lineman jerseys. Tippmann would be a good one. I like Quincy. I just don't love that his last name's Williams because like there's a zillion Williamses in the league, and I feel like it, maybe other people may not know. Maybe that's a stupid reason not to get a jersey, but it's almost the same thinking with like Johnson as well. Although I guess Wilson is a crazy popular name, and I just got Wilson number 5. I don't know. Jerome wants Knoble at 10. Lloyd, stay away from tight end. Name a first-round tight end that is a game changer or an all-pro now. All the top tight ends were drafted outside of the first round. Yeah, but Lloyd, I would argue that the evaluation process of the tight ends is what is wrong, and that tight ends that were drafted in later rounds, like Kelsey, is worth a first-round pick. I think Kittle is worth a first-round pick. I think Laporta is worth a first-round pick. The issue is but the NFL in general just doesn't evaluate guys well. I think Pitts and Kincaid are both good tight ends. I think you'll see Pitts have a much more success with Cousins this year than you did with Desmond Ridder the last few years. So I would put like maybe a little, hey, we're not quite sure. Hawkinson's is a good tight end. Like are they studs like the guys that you've seen come on to be studs later in the draft? Who knows? They may not live up to that hype, but there's not many that could do that. Juan says, go draft another tackle. These tackles the Jets have are hired guns for 2 years. Yeah, look, everything we're operating in is within 2 years. Hennessy is too. Yeah, Hennessy, I know Gabriel is you. You have the same logo. I emailed you twice, but I see you said 2 large. So I'll jot it down. I'll put it in. Realistically, I would be surprised if it got to you in time for the draft party. I'll put it in as soon as this stream is over. But I think at this point we're cutting it close. But you'll get it there. I'm excited to see you, dude. Hennessy says Brees will get tagged. I do think Brees getting tagged or an extension after this season makes the most sense. I like the extension route. I think that makes it feel better for everyone involved. And I think Brees is going to be worth it. Rico says, we've talked about non-first round wide receivers, so why is no one talking about non-first round offensive tackles? No one has a line solely comprised of first rounders. It's like first round or bust for offensive tackle with fans. Yeah, there's a lot of teams around the league that have third, fourth, fifth round picks starting on their offensive line consistently. Like, there's no reason the Jets have to spend 3 first round picks over the course of 4 years or 5 years or whatever it's been on offensive line just to get it to work. I think Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback in and of itself is going to elevate the play of the offensive line. So I think it will be a little bit better. Jesse says, cool hat, Ryan. Where'd you get it? Got it from my wife when baby 1 was born. I'm assuming Amazon. I have no idea. I probably should link it. Gotta link it. Douglas says, trade down, pick up extra picks this year. Draft is deep with wide receiver and O-line. I feel more confident with the wide receivers deeper than I do the offensive line, but if you're going for a depth offensive lineman anyway, that's kind of my argument for offensive line early. I do like trading down. If you can pick up a second-round pick, I think that's probably my preferred route, especially if it costs too much to move up to get one of the wide receivers. If Odunze's there at 10, though, that's my pick. I don't think the Jets are going to get the opportunity to trade down, though. I don't think there's going to be a team willing to come up because I think the Bears are willing to trade down for at least the same price, if not cheaper, for the Jets because they only have 4 picks. Stanley says, who cares if Bowers won the Mackey Award? He is small for a tight end, and the Jets will have to move him around and use him in the slot as a receiver. Yeah, what's wrong with using him in the slot as a wide receiver? Is there an issue with that? If the Jets run 12 personnel and Bowers creates mismatches, and he's not even that small. He's 6'3". I'm pretty sure, isn't Laporta that size? I could be wrong. There's plenty of tight ends around that size. Now, it's not like 6'5", 6'7" like Gronk, and it's not like Kyle Pitts, who's crazy fast and super tall as well, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. I think he's arguably the 3rd or 4th best pass catcher in this draft. Bill says Bowers is a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. Yeah, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Duncan says Bowers drops balls, gives up on routes, wins mismatches he won't have in the NFL. How many drops did he have? Now I got to pull it up. Give me a second. I'm going to fact check you right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he doesn't catch the ball as much. I don't remember that being like a major part of his game, though. So he's dropped 8 passes total in his 3 years. 3 this past year, 3 the year before that, and 2 the year before that. His drop percentage is about 5%. 3.4, 4.5, 5.1. By comparison, let's see what Odunze is. Just curious. Odunze's drop percentage is a 6.6 career. It has come down the last 2 years. Let's see what Malik Neighbors' drop percentage is. .3. So what the hell, Duncan? It appears everyone's got a higher drop percentage than Brock Bowers. Now, giving up on routes, I don't know that to be true. I would have to err on the side of Dom C and Blewett for that. But Blewett's got him as like this number 7 player on his big board. I don't know. I think you're wrong. JD says, love Bowers, but I'd ideally prefer Odunze because that would get us Garrett Wilson in the slot, whereas Bowers would take a hat role and make Garrett Wilson stay outside. make a hat roll. I do like the wide receiver. Putting Odunze and Williams on the outside with Garrett in the slot is crazy explosive. I would love to see that. I'm fine with Bowers in the slot, but Garrett in the slot gets me excited. Frank says, "What's up, Ryan? Love the job you're doing as per usual. Finger guns, thank you. I would love to grab a weapon in round 1, whether it's Neighbors." He's dreaming. Odunze or Bowers at 10. If we trade down, I would like Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, that's sort of where I stand. I do like O-line in a trade down scenario. I think if Fontenot and Talese Funga are gone, then maybe I'd lean a little bit more towards Brian Thomas Jr. I like a lot of the second round wide receivers close to as much as I like Brian Thomas Jr. So that's probably where I'm, slightly down on him a little bit. But it's more so me spreading assets around. I think there is a world where Neighbors could fall to 8. I think Odunze, I've heard people like him as the second best wide receiver in some instances. So if there's 4 quarterbacks that go in the top 5 picks, figure Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably one of the wide receivers that goes. Then, it's a matter of what the Giants do. The Giants want Odunze. If they want Odunze, now you're talking about the Titans. They're not going to take a wide receiver, I don't think. I don't think the Falcons are going to take a receiver. I think they're more of a defensive line type team. And then it's the Bears. So if the Jets were looking to come up to 8, I think you could get I think you can get wide receiver 3 at number 8. I think it's entirely possible it happens at 10. I think the Bears could trade down and another team, comes up for Brock Bowers or comes up for a quarterback or who knows. But thank you. I'm very much team weapon as well. Yo, Crossfire, what's good, dude? I think offensive line at 10, but I'll be happy with whoever they take. That's sort of the stance I take. Like, there's too many fans that just fucking die on a hill. I need Brock Bowers. I need an offensive lineman. I need a wide receiver. Like, that's not a way to do it. You can see a path to build our team or to have success with any direction that they go. And if they draft offensive line, I'll be like, okay, cool. They're happy with our weapons, and they're just making sure Aaron Rodgers stays upright. They're building to the future. Like, I'm fine with that too. I like Odunze. I like the top 3 wide receivers, and I like Bowers because they provide another layer of like excitement that could be building a team. But I'm with you. I'm happy with any route they go. I'll be honest. Hype says, Ryan, if we were going to pick Myers in the first round last year, that makes me feel comfortable in our tight end evaluation. Yeah, right? Like, if they liked Myers last year, then you feel good about it. Now, I don't feel good that we wanted Mayer in the first round and not in, like, the second round. But, at least they hit on the pick. Cam says, what do you think about a trade back deep into the 20s for Jackson Powers Johnson, the center? I would be open to that. He doesn't even necessarily have to play center. He's only played center for 1 year in college. So if you wanted to make him a guard, or you want to make Tippin a guard, or you want to boom AVT out to tackle, like, I'm good with positional flexibility. And I do like JPJ. From what I heard from Dom C at the Senior Bowl, it sounds like he was like the best player on the offensive line there. And I could see him going to Miami at 21. I could see him falling a little bit further. There's been a few mock drafts where I see him fall out of the first round. I don't love going guard or center in the first round because of that 5th-year option that we're currently dealing with AVT. I'd prefer, maybe a tackle or something along those lines, but I wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't be my first thing going on. Let's see. Do I want to show you guys? I can show you guys something kind of cool. Let me see if I can pull it over. I don't know if it was on Twitter. It may not have been on Twitter. It might have been a... It was Twitter. Okay. Let me see if I can get this. Can I pull this over? Whoop. Oh, geez. I'm highlighting everything. All right. Let's see. Can I show this without... I'm going to show you something cool. I just got to figure out how to do it without jacking this all up. I guess if I go into messages, how does this work? I'm so bad at Twitter. It's comical. All right. Let's go over to the share screen, see if I can do this correctly. I'm going to throw myself into preview mode so I can hide this at least initially. This was a comment that I've received in regards to Nathaniel Hackett. All right. Just trying to size this up real quick, and then I'll pull it up on screen for you guys to see. So I am going to hide the person's name from this that sent me this, so that way it's not too obvious. I guess if Hackett watches this, he'll probably know where it came from. But all right. Let's see. Did I go back to live mode? Okay, perfect. All right. So this is from someone who ran into Hackett recently. I do have photographic proof that this happened. I did talk to the person, so this. I do think this is legit. He came in and told his son to put a pack of cards with Russell Wilson on the cover, or put back a pack of cards. No, son. He came in and told his son to put a pack with Russell Wilson on the cover. He said Russell Wilson still gives him nightmares. That makes me laugh. I said, big day coming up soon. He said, yeah, they actually wrapped up a draft meeting not long ago. He explained how meetings go. Basically, players' names get brought up and scouts and coaches give comments. We've seen that in One Jets Drive. He said at the end of the day, the pick comes down to Joe. But he made it known he's in love with the top 3 wide receivers. If none of the 3 are available, he would like to trade back because his next 3 favorite are, in his words, 𝐂𝐲𝐬𝐳, Brian Thomas Jr., and pretty Ricky Pearsall from Florida. I asked him about Roman Wilson. He likes him. I brought up Johnny Wilson. He said he hates him as a prospect. He has a lot of Kelvin Benjamin written all over him. He told me best case scenario, 4 quarterbacks and 2 defensive players go before us. Because then we have a pretty confident, we feel pretty confident that a wide receiver is going to fall to us. That's what I've been saying. I think the 4 quarterbacks go. Williams, May, Daniels, JJ. And then Turner and Verse. I think Verse is going to go, Turner and Verse are going to go 8-9 to the Falcons and Bears. And I think that's the scenario where wide receiver 3 falls to us. I asked him about the O-line. He said, our O-line is set. He feels we are in win now mode and doesn't see us going O-line. If we do, Alt, Fautanu, and Talise Funga from Oregon was his votes. Alabama scares him. He gave me vibes that the O-line is not a top priority. This is what I've been saying. I think the Jets are going all in and are going to go weapon. So this does check out with how I feel. I asked about Bowers. He didn't comment much about him. I told him fans are 50-50 split on him, and there's a small group that calls themselves the Bauer Boys. He laughed and said he refuses to read anything NFL-related put out by media. So I don't know if that's like, do you think the media is driving the Bowers narrative? I don't think so. I think the fans, based on what the Jets have done in the past, is driving the Bowers narrative. The dude's eyes literally opened up talking wide receiver. He badly wants one of the top 3. I would even go so far as to say drooling over them. So I'm telling you, I think they want to go wide receiver. I really do. Also, he told me the Giants are the biggest wild card, as the Jets organization is not sure what direction they're going. They could go offensive line, they could go wide receiver, they could go quarterback, they could trade out. There's a lot of different hurdles there. Now, I've been saying I think the Bears are the biggest concern for us. I think if quarterback 4 makes it to the Giants, I think they go quarterback. He said either they are awesome at smokescreens or they aren't even sure what they want. Talking about the Giants. My opinion, and only my opinion, I feel if one of the top 3 wide receivers are there, they're going to pick one up. If Bowers is there, If they have a partner, they will trade back. I told him, just tell them not to go defense. And his response, why? So you think I said best case 4 quarterbacks and his response, why? So you think I said best case 4 quarterbacks and Turner and a quarterback go before us? That worries me. I don't know if I understand that. Keep an eye on Ricky Pearsall. If we didn't go wide receiver in round 1, he seems to really like him. So that's what I've heard on Nathaniel Hackett and what the Jets' plans are potentially at that number 10 overall pick. You guys can take that with a grain of salt all you want. I think it's interesting enough for me, and it confirms a lot of what I feel like I would do if I were the New York Jets. And I've been pretty dialed in to most of the Jets' early draft picks. I was stunned with Will McDonald. That caught me completely off guard. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. That's what I've heard. Monica comes in and says, question, why weapon and then complain all season that we didn't draft offensive line? Well, because I wanted offensive line last year or weapon last year. I'm complaining we didn't go offensive line because we traded down last year to get Aaron Rodgers, and I thought we should have waited to trade for Aaron Rodgers, and we would have had the offensive lineman anyway. I'm not going to complain about offensive line because I do think you can add Bakhtiari, and I think you can add McGovern and build out your offensive line depth. I don't think you have to take a depth piece at number 10. Young Freezy says, Brees, Sauce, and Garrett will stay. Jermaine will leave. I disagree. I think Sauce is a lock to stay. I think Garrett is probably the most likely to leave in a post-Rodgers world. I don't think he's willing to go through a rebuild. Brees, I would argue probably the same thing. I think you could see Jermaine and Sauce be the 2 long-term staples here post-Rodgers. I would hope it would be Garrett and Sauce to spread out the love on offense, defense. I really like Jermaine. Jermaine, I would have taken Jermaine at 4, so I would be stoked if we kept him long-term. I think you can keep 3 of the 4. And I would guess Brees, would be a little less likely to stay long-term. Rico says, the Bowers is small stuff is overblown. Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta are 6'4", 6'3", respectively, and less than 10 pounds heavier. Yeah, I think he's Bowers is good enough. I'm not concerned about his size. People blow it out of proportion. Bill says, Ryan, our quarterback is 41. Our quarterback is 40. He doesn't turn 41 until December. If he isn't protected, the season is over. If he gets hurt, the season is over. Now, I don't know. I don't think you draft a player in the top 10 anticipating your starters are going to get hurt. I feel like that's a little silly. I think you can spot start Carter Warren and be fine. I have some concern with AVT coming off the Achilles on the interior, but I feel like if you bring in McGovern to be either the backup center or guard hybrid, whatever, I'm fine with that. I think Bakhtiari is fine for that. I'm looking at this as a 2-year window. That's my biggest gripe or biggest thing that I'm considering. Blewett prefers offensive tackle, Ryan. No, he doesn't. I know for a fact he doesn't. I sat and watched his video that he came out with yesterday. He has Latham higher than Odunze and has Latham higher than Bowers, but he does not prefer tackle. He prefers wide receiver. He would consider offensive tackle above Bowers. But he definitely prefers wide receiver, 100%. Duncan says, well, that will teach me not to fact check videos. Talking about the comment you had before on the drop rate. That's all right. Hey, look, I've made wrong comments before. It happens. Adam S. says, Ryan, you have 2 channels going, I think. I do have 2 going. I have a landscape and a portrait mode because YouTube is pushing YouTube Shorts, and I can live stream to YouTube Shorts. So I'm hitting a new demographic that doesn't normally see my channel. So if you're hanging out in the vertical stream and you want to see the landscape stream, there is a landscape stream. You can go over to my homepage and you can see the normal layout. So if you're a little confused as to what's going on, That's what it is. If Rodgers stays upright, our weapons will eat. If he doesn't, nothing will happen. Yeah, look, if Rodgers goes down, we're screwed either way. I understand the concern. I just don't want to do it in the first round. Bill says the fact that there is a higher correlation between winning with an elite offensive line, Ryan. Well, do you not consider our offensive line like elite? Like Tyron Smith's an all-pro. Morgan Moses has been healthy like 95% of every one of his seasons. And even last year when he had a torn pec, he played in like 76% of the games. Like, I don't think offensive line is as big of a concern as we're making it out to be. This is a drastically different offensive line than the line with Mekhi Becton, Dwayne Brown, and, the no depth. Like, for me, I very much like this. And I like the idea of adding Bakhtiari and McGovern as well. And I think that gives you plenty of depth. And I think you just need, at that point, you're talking about needing to outscore the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Ravens. And I don't know if the Jets can do that if you go O-line at 10. Eric says, Ryan, if Jordan Travis never got injured, where would he go in the draft? It's hard to say, right? Like maybe second round. I don't think he's ever going into the first round if he stayed healthy. Now, if he goes, if he went into the college football playoffs and they just dominated and he beat up on Alabama and all this other stuff, then yeah, his draft stock would have really increased. If he's there in the fourth round, I'd be happy with the Jets taking him. I've seen his stock go pretty much everywhere. Jerome, what's good, dude? Says, I got my Breece Hall green jersey and green cap yesterday. They look awesome. My hat is coming in on Monday. I'm really excited. I think my Garrett Wilson jersey in green doesn't come till May 3rd. So I got to wait a little bit. It's better than some of my legacy jerseys last year. I ordered them and then they didn't come till like the first week of the season. Let's see. Hennessy says, God forbid Garrett goes down, we will see Lazard and Brownlee team weapon. Yeah, like if you lose Garrett, this offense is only Breece Hall. Like I like running it through Breece Hall, and maybe Rodgers can elevate the rest of the wide receivers enough to make you feel more comfortable in the backups here. But I very much want Odunze. I think Odunze prepares us better for the oh no situation of a weapon going down. Or not just Odunze, but wide receiver in general. Even Bowers gives you another threat to game plan around. Like defenses are gonna have to worry about Bowers, where I don't know if you necessarily game plan around Conklin. Like Conklin's a good tight end. Wide receivers is the pick for me though. That's what I want, and I'd go so far as to move like a second in 2025. If you can convince me you can get up to get Marvin Harrison Jr., I'd be open to moving the 2025 first. I've come around a little bit more on that in recent weeks. Tim says, great stuff, Ryan. Bears become the biggest threat for a team to trade up. If a wide receiver falls, trade up to number 8 to avoid a scenario like last year for a wide receiver. Tim, I would agree. If there's a wide receiver sitting there at 8, I would call up Atlanta. I would say, hey, what's it going to take to just, flip-flop picks? You want John Franklin Myers? We'll come up to 8. You get a nice little defender. Maybe that's what you go. Maybe you throw him a 4th-round pick and you keep JFM. I'd like to align JFM, Reed, and Conklin with our 2-year window with their contracts. That would be a nice move. But I'm good with moving up to number 8. That'd be fine. Does he know Breece can catch? Breece is really good out of the backfield. I love me some Breece. I think he's higher up on the receiving pecking order than like even I shouldn't say more than a Conklin, but on a game plan basis, you're going to target Breece more via runs and receptions. He'll get his touches. Crossfire says, I just got an ad. I am hating YouTube more and more. How is YouTube going to put ads on lives? Crossfire, they've been doing that for like months now. I don't love it. I didn't do it for a long time in protest of it, but then the ads on other aspects of streaming and like post ads, like on pre-recorded videos, the value went down. So they're kind of forcing content creators into having live stream ads. So I apologize, but I don't charge anyone for this content. So, you know, if you got to sit through an ad to help, thank you, I guess. It sucks. I was not a fan of that particular move, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. Hennessy says Giants don't know what they want. Yeah, the fans have no idea. My buddy's a little all over the place. He'd be open with quarterback. He'd be open with wide receiver. He'd be open with O-line. Crossfire says, I don't think it's necessarily over Taylor as a competent quarterback. Not necessarily over because Tyrod Taylor is a competent quarterback. I think we can win more games than we lose with him. I agree. I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, though. Tyrod, to me, is the placeholder for when Rodgers gets back. So if you lose Rodgers for the season, your season's probably toast anyway. Zachary says, do you think Becton would resign as a backup? I would be surprised, but there is a world where I would be open to it. I think he kind of burnt some bridges with some of his comments about the offensive coaching staff, particularly Keith Carter. If you get him back cheap and have him be backup left tackle, right tackle, and then he's another year removed from the injury, maybe Joe Douglas thinks he can reclaim something from him. I do think his time in New York is likely over, but I wouldn't be totally against it. Mike says, at this point, it doesn't make sense to draft someone at 10 to sit potentially the entire year. We're getting Odunze or Bowers. Yeah, that's definitely where I'm at. Hennessy says, if we can tag Garrett, if we don't make a deal, so he will be here for 3 more years at least. That's our window. I think Garrett's so elite that you use him for the 2 years that you have him with the Super Bowl window. And if Rodgers continues to go further, then yeah, I would agree. You look at tagging him. But I think what is a more realistic thing to have happen, unfortunately, is Rodgers plays out these 2 years. The Jets have an enormous dead cap hit, and then maybe a new regime is coming in, and maybe there's a situation where, you know, the quarterback situation does not look very good, and Garrett's like, hey, I want to get paid a ton of money right now, and justifiably so. I hope Garrett stays here long term, but I think there's a situation where the Jets trade him for a lot of draft picks. 1 or 2 first-round draft picks in a few years after our Super Bowl window, and that's sort of how you rebuild with a team with a ton of dead cap on top of it. Again, I don't want to see that happen. I hope Garrett's a lifetime Jet with sauce, but I do think there's a pretty decent chance that does end up happening. Nightbot, oh, thank you for reminding me to plug the sponsor on a lovely holiday Saturday. Happy 420, boys. Happy Green Day, if it were. If you would like to support the channel, you can head down to the description down below. I have been enjoying the THC seltzers, 10 milligram THC seltzers, sour watermelon, and the Sleepy Time gummies, courtesy of Crescent Canna. For those of you guys that don't know, you can actually get this stuff mailed to your house, so you don't have to go to a dispensary. You don't have to be all like awkward and unsure. And if you are a smoker and you want to get off the smoke and you want to have something that's a little bit healthier for you in terms of like eating, it's pretty good. I've been on that game. I've actually not totally eliminated drinking beer and whatnot, but my stomach does not feel good after I drink. So it's been a nice little switch up for me. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you can check it out down below. If you use promo code JetsTalk, you'll get 25% off. I think it's 25% off the gummies. I don't know if you get a discount off the seltzers, but yeah, if you want to do that, give it a try. I think it's worth your shot. I was the one that actually reached out to them about a sponsorship. I was like, hey, I really like your products. I would love to get a discount on them because I'm going to keep ordering them. And then they're like, hey, you could try some of this stuff too. I was like, yes, please. I got a little bit of THC syrup in my coffee too. It's kind of cool. It's like a little eyedropper. You unscrew it. Let's see if I can do this without jacking it up. Try not to get not get it all over my setup here. Boom. Little eyedropper. So you can literally put this in like any kind of drink. So say you like, I'm going to do it in chocolate milk. I'm going to try it in chocolate milk. I'm going to try that tonight. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I'm like a 10-year-old kid in my head. I freaking love chocolate milk. But Crescent Canna, Jets Talk 24/7, baby. Jets Talk. Promo code Jets Talk. J-Boy, what's up? Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, has to be Brock Bowers. A backup left tackle can be taken in the 3rd round. I think it has to be weapon. I'm totally game for Bowers. I definitely lean more wide receiver if possible. I would trade up a little bit if you could get it. But I'm definitely team weapon. Sneakers to Boots, what's good, man? Says, Ryan, do you think JD is blowing smoke up our ass about the AVT comment? I absolutely do. He's so full of shit. January 8th, they said, AVT, he said, Joe Douglas, AVT is a cornerstone of this offensive line. Oh, yeah. Cornerstone of the offensive line, you're not going to exercise fifth-year option? I think they're trying to make it seem like we're going to go offensive line at 10. I also think the Brock Bowers thing about, the tight end, yeah, they could be Laporta, they could be Kittle, they could be Kelsey, absolutely worth a first-round pick. Blinking. Jets are favorite to take Brock Bowers. Guess what? If you want to get Brock Bowers, trade in front of the New York Jets. I think the Jets want a wide receiver. Seemed caught off guard with the question, but I think he was being ambiguous, so teams don't know our draft plan. Sneakers to Boots, I completely agree. Completely agree with your assessment here. Lawrence says, hey man, I just see the value of a 700 to 1,000-yard wide receiver on a rookie contract. The fact that we have one starter that's not injured, that's good. And how much number twos have been getting paid easily. Yeah, look at what Calvin Ridley got. Calvin Ridley's getting $23 million a year. If you draft wide receiver, that is absolutely a huge savings. It's a huge move. Now, if you take Bowers, you're paying him like a top 10, top 7 tight end. Like, that's a little concerning, but the contract doesn't necessarily bug me so much because it's only like a 2-year window. But the value you could get on a wide receiver should be highly considered. Mike says, for the record, I would take Brian Thomas Jr. at 10. I think he's that good. I think Tigo's on that same wavelength. I don't know if I'm there with that. If Odunze isn't there, of course. I wouldn't be. I think it would be exciting. I trust Douglas's ability to judge wide receivers a little bit more than my own. But I don't know if I'm there on Brian Thomas Jr. at 10. Basil, how do you feel? Do you feel they are holding on to Zach to use for a draft trade while teams feel it will cost less to wait till he's cut? Yeah, I do. I think the Jets are going to try and move him during the draft. I think he's going to get cut before offseason mandatory camps start happening because I don't think they want him in the building. I think it's just an awkward, weird conversation to have. So I do think he's probably gone. I would hold on to him till the end of training camp. Even if he's not there with the Jets, I would just say, hey, stay at home. If a starter goes down, we're moving you then. That would be my my preference. Bill says, watch the clip again, Ryan. He said he doesn't think Odunze Harrison. I watched a 2-hour stream with Blewett yesterday, though. Blewett was talking about how he wants he wants weapon. He has Latham rated higher than Bowers and Odunze, but he doesn't think offensive line is the leap up in increased production of this team overall the way that wide receiver would be. He might go O-line over Bowers potentially. I think he likes Bowers more in a trade down in the 15 to 20 range, but he does have Bowers as number 7 on his big board. Alan says, Mike, I don't like Brian Thomas Jr. I don't even have him as wide receiver 4. He's a 20s to 40s guy for me. I would say he's closer to 20 for me. I would say that 15 to 20 range. I can't say end of the first round. That doesn't feel right. Mike says, Bowers 4 touchdowns in career. Brian Thomas Jr. 24. Trade down for Brian Thomas Jr. Is that really all the touchdowns that Bowers has in his career? That's pretty funny. Let's see. He's just such a mismatch, though, dude. Watching him play is just something fun. No, what are you talking about? Bowers has 6 touchdowns last year, 7 the year before that, and 13 the year before that. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Mike? Tony says, Ryan, go watch Pratt versus SMU and never mention him again. He's undraftable. Look, I'm basing this based on the Jets top 30. They clearly brought him in. I do like his highlights. And I think you're drafting based on perceived upside, and you hope you can build up the floor. There's a reason why Pratt's going in the middle of the draft and not in the first round. So there's going to be warts. Again, I would err on the side of Jordan Travis. I like the idea of IRing him. Oh, Mike the Stat Guy says, sorry, I was reading rushing touchdowns. Idiot! Where's my button?
Guy's an idiot.
Way to go, Mike. Way to go. Freedom House says, no, I just said just because you draft a tackle high doesn't mean he works out. Your tiny brain changed that into you can't draft a tackle at 10. Is that me? Are you talking to me? Sorry. Hugh Direction. Jets fans living in a dreamland. We always are. All this shit is irrelevant anyway. Green Bay is winning the Super Bowl. Hey, Rection? No. Not happening. I hope not. Hennessy says, my mock is Odunze at 10. I've been saying that's what I think is going to happen. I think Odunze makes it there. What am I on? Man, I've been going for 2 hours already. All right, let's hammer through a few more questions. Evan says, that's a great point about not committing publicly to AVT's fifth-year option. Could be trying to make teams think we're going O-line at 10. That's why you're the best in the biz. Evan, I'm like 100% sure Joe Douglas is blowing a ton of smoke. He is saying, oh, we're not committing to AVT's fifth-year option, even though he traded 2 third-round picks to go get the guy, and he said he's a cornerstone of our offense at the end of the season. Like, that to me says you're exercising his fifth-year option. So I definitely think there's some smoke making teams think we're going offensive line because we lost Rodgers to the season, for the season, because of our offensive line or like a big hit or whatever. I think that's the same reason why they're talking a little bit about Brock Bowers and the hype there and bringing him in with Rodgers. I think the Jets want receiver. I really do. And they're trying to make moves in a way that will allow them to get one. Fats Bud says, I don't see us taking anything but tackle because come week 5, when our O-line is banged up, if we are 2-2 or something, every Jet fan will be screaming for Joe Douglas and Salah's head. I think you have to add offensive linemen, but I don't think it has to be at the 10 pick. I think you can absolutely do that in the 3rd round. I think you can add Bakhtiari. I think you could add McGovern. I think you could add the kid from Kansas City that's a Jet fan, Devon Smith or Devon Smith or whatever his name is. I think those are perfectly acceptable backups. When you look at Morgan Moses, I think you gamble on him being healthy like he's always been. I mean, heck, he played 70% of the season last year with a torn pec. And he's played 95% of every snap ever before that. I think he's missed 4 games in his career. Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015, but he's played in every single playoff game that the Cowboys have been in since then. That's 7. That tells me he's healthy when it matters most. So he might miss a spot start. He might get banged up a little bit. But in that capacity, I like Carter Warren for a game. Maybe you put Conklin there for a game and have him help and chip on that side. I think there's ways to do it. I think you get the ball out fast enough. I think you can definitely avoid having to go offensive line so early. D! Yo, what's up, Ryan? Love you, man. Finger guns. Thank you. Love you too. Evan says, do we have faith in Lazard playing better than last season, or are we throwing in the towel on him? I would say one of the biggest increases in production on this team is going to be getting Lazard 60% of the snaps off the field for someone of a higher caliber. Now, if Lazard is going to play 25% of the snaps or 30% of the snaps, and you have Rodgers back there, and he does have increased production, I do think he's going to have a better year than last year. I think last year it was a little goofy, but there's some reports saying that he gave up on the team, and I don't think the Jets are crazy high on him. I think they could have moved him if they would have. My source that I've talked to says that the Jets offered Lazard and our 4th round pick for Jerry Jeudy, and the Broncos decided to trade Jeudy to the Browns for a 5th and a 6th round pick. So what does that tell you about what other teams think about Lazard? I don't think Lazard's very good. I think we're trying to dump off that contract and trying to move on from him. I not that I'm necessarily throwing in the towel, but I don't want to have to rely on him. Mike says, correction. Bowers had 26 receiving touchdowns, 4 rushing. I don't think that's right either, though. Receiving, oh yeah, 26 receiving touchdowns. Yeah, that's right. Bowers is a weapon. I know people don't like hearing the position, but I'm totally on board if that's the decision they make. Tony asking, what's the contract values for the draft class? I think the Jets, because of the displacement of lower contracts, I think it's a $4.5 million. Like in total, it's $10.5 million, but I think cap wise, it's only $4.5 million. So there's going to be some moves that happen. Like I think you don't restructure Conklin until after the draft, because if you take Bowers, you're not going to restructure Conklin. If you go with 𝐿'Dunze, Neighbors, or Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round, then I think you restructure Conklin and he comes back for 2 more years, and that frees up some cap space for this season. JFM, I could see being cut or I could see being traded. Maybe you extend him. I don't like him on his current contract, I'll be honest. Let's see. Lawrence says, I don't think 𝐿'Dunze goes to 10. We'll have to get him. If you think we're the only team that would move up for him, he's high on their board. Some like him more than the other 2. Yeah, that's why I think if one of the receivers makes it to 8, I'm cool with giving up, a 4th round pick or something like that to go up and get our guy. Like I'm cool with jumping the Bears. I don't want to get caught with our pants down. It's not the time to be stingy on draft picks. Go and get your guy. Hugh says, that's the only reason San Francisco got back into the game. Chiefs relied on a deflected punt for an easy touchdown out of nowhere to get back in the game, and they were getting dominated in. The 49ers should have won a Super Bowl these last few years. I'm a 49ers fan on the NFC side of things. Wild Wave says, unlike JD, Saleh let the cat out of the bag when he said Mike wouldn't be ready week 1. They definitely want a receiver. 100%. Dude, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yo, we're going weapon. I think Bowers is in play, but I think receiver is definitely what we want. And based on the Hackett comment that I showed on the screen earlier, if you guys didn't check out the Hackett comment, go back and rewind a little bit. I think Hackett is definitely saying the Jets are going to go wide receiver as well. If I'm a betting man and you're looking at BetUS and some of those betting sites on who's going to go 10 or who the Jets take, I would put money on wide receiver over some of the other ones, just because the conversion for getting Bowers right because he's the favorite isn't like a super good increase anyway. No Packers channels go live like this all the time. Wow. I like a few of the Packers guys. I'm a fan. Now I'm just off today, and Becca was out of the house, so I was able to do a little bit more. Now I know she's home because I heard Shay talking, but I haven't seen the little one get up. I haven't heard her cooing and cawing, so I guess she's still asleep right now. Mom's in the house though, so we're good. Johnny Cards, not a fan of Lazard. Outlaw says, I just think Denver doesn't like us because of the situation with Nathaniel Hackett and Sean Payton. I think that's entirely possible too. Maybe they didn't want to give us Jerry Jeudy, and they took less because of it. But I don't think Lazard is a great option either way. I don't think other teams like him. See, Hugh says, he read my name out. Of course, huge erection. I love this sort of stuff. So if you guys come up with funny names, I'm going to read it. I don't think I lose sponsors based on reading goofy names like this. I'm all about it. Lawrence, Bowers had less than 200 rush yards his whole college career. We can line him up there, but he could also line Ruckert up there. Yeah, I think the flexibility that Bowers and Ruckert give you in terms of fullback, I would like to move off Bawden. I like Bawden, but I want to save a roster spot. I think Isaiah Oliver, the the slot corner and special teams guy, I think was another player that we brought in that is like a Guidry/Hardy type replacement to try and save a roster spot. I would try to do the same thing with tight end and fullback. Big Zeus says, weapon is the only choice. We don't even have the best offensive weapons in the division. Miami with Hill, Waddle, and Mostert have better weapons than us. Oh, 100%. 100%. I like our weapons. I would like to add another one. make it. I feel like also going like the weapon route gives Rodgers that one thing that he didn't get in Green Bay, and I feel like that was part of the conversation they had when we were bringing him over. Lawrence says, rookie quarterbacks with talent tend to have film out there after their rookie season, so it's not going to be easy as someone would think, and that division is going to be harder than ours is this year. Which, are you talking about the South? With like Levis and Anthony Richardson? I don't know which division you're talking about. I do think the East is going to be challenging. I think the Jets took easily the biggest step forward. I think the Bills took the biggest step backwards. I think Miami took a step backwards, and I think the Patriots, are taking steps forward, but I don't think it's big enough to compete. Mike says, I'm not a Bowers boy, as you could probably tell. I wouldn't call myself a Bowers boy, but I'm definitely a fan of Bowers. It was funny. I was going through Reddit, and every time content creators comes up, sometimes it's like a little cringy, and I hate it, but I wind up reading some comments, and I saw one guy goes, Ryan's nuts. He wants tight end. I hate his crazy takes. I was like, whoa, hey, asshole. I want a wide receiver. Don't get me twisted. I like Bowers. But and I could see where the Jets would go Bowers. I'm giving you all the reasons why I think it would make sense. But then I get butthurt. I'm like, this guy's just saying the wrong stuff about me. That's all right. Say what you want. I get clipped a lot on our Talking Jets page because I do a lot of the devil's advocate stuff, and then I think I look more like an asshat in the short form content than I think I am. Alan, I grew up a Jets fan. Very frustrating watching incompetent regimes over the years. Yeah, of course. Of course. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Why do you even like this team, Alan? Tony says, I'm trading down all day. They need to add talent around Quinnen, Sauce, JJ, Garrett Wilson, Tippmann, and McDonald for the future. I'm so much more pro let's go for a Super Bowl now than I am building for the future. I would rather go through another year or two of like misery after 2 years of like Super Bowl like aspirations. Because if you're building for the future, you're saying you're hoping you're hitting on a quarterback after Rodgers, and I don't think that's the right way to go. I think you work on this as a year-by-year type of scenario and just try to go all in. How many years have we been trying to get a franchise quarterback? You finally have one and you want to build for the future? Like, I understand why fans want to do that because we are going to be here far longer than, the players that we're taking on right now are going to be. But I very much want to push it all in now. Lauren says, where can I find the Hackett stuff? I think it's in the middle of the stream. If you skim through it using like the arrow keys, you should be able to find it. I switched screens, so it was like a tall vertical comment. But he basically says offensive line is set and he wants wide receiver. That's where it comes from. Wild Wave says, if Marvin Harrison is there at 5, I would give up next year's first to go get him. 2025 is a defensive draft with not the best quarterback talent, so I would be comfortable parting ways with next year's first. Yeah, you're not taking a quarterback in next year's first round, I don't think. And realistically, if you think Marvin Harrison Jr. could be, an AJ Green or a Julio Jones type of impact, go up and do it. Go up and do it because I guarantee it's going to be better than whatever pick you get at 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 next year. That's what I want. I would absolutely do that. Hennessy says, Shay is a nice name for your daughter, Ryan. Let's go Mets. Great win last night. And the Jets won their Super Bowl while their home stadium was Shay. So a little bit of that too. Let's see. Salah blasting Lazard last year in a presser saying he will only be here until next year is all we and teams need to know about him. Yeah, now some of that might just be contract like talk, like, hey, he's got 2 years guaranteed, so hey, he's on the team for the next 2 years. I think that's just being real. Like, I think other teams that are looking at contracts, could decipher just as much. I think fans, I know myself, I was saying this is a 2-year deal for Lazard. So I would imagine there's teams in other, or guys in other regimes that clearly know that that's the case. Now, maybe for casual fans, or of other teams, not our team, but could look at Lazard and be like, wow, the Jets clearly don't want him. Maybe there's something to that, but I definitely think he was only a 2-year contract, and it might have just been a little bit more of a slip than anything else. Alan says, curious if teams call for DJ Reed. Something to think about. This will be his last year with us. Yeah, I do think Reed is done after this year. I think we're more likely to franchise tag Hassan Reddick after this season for 1 year, and then see where it goes. If we're going all in. If we're going all in for next year, I think the franchise tag for Reddick makes sense. Reed, as much as I'd love to keep him here, I think you're going to have to pay Sauce so much and some of your other guys so much. I'm willing to listen to trade offers for Reed, but I'm more than okay allowing him to play out this season in a contract year, get the most possible production out of him, and let him walk in free agency. In a year, I don't expect us to be overly active in free agency next season, so I think we will get a comp pick for him, and I think he would net a pretty high contract. Fucking Jets for life. Then read my comment about Lazard. LOL. You don't like my screen name, 55 years Jet fan. I like your screen name. I think that's funny. I just wind up scrolling down. If I see a comment that I find interesting, I'll read it. Johnny is a Jordan Travis fan. I got a lot of his cards and autographs. Hopefully Jets can snag him later on. 4th round. That's what I'm thinking. I do like him. Hennessy, Packers missed the Super Bowl drafting Love instead of a weapon. Yeah, you could definitely make that argument. I mean, you could say if they had drafted T. Higgins, they probably would have won a Super Bowl at some point in those few years. I mean, they went to the NFC Championship game 2 of those seasons, and A-Rod won MVP 2 back-to-back years. You add an elite wide receiver to that group. I think the weapons the Jets have now are arguably the best weapons Rodgers has ever had in his career. Obviously prime Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones. There's some argument, I think, to be had there. But I think if you bring in an Odunze, a Neighbors, a Marvin Harrison Jr., this team is significantly better from a weapons perspective. And I think that's what the Jets are trying to sell on Rodgers, or how they sold him on coming here to begin with. Keeping It Simple says, what's your take on JD's fumble of the AVT 5th-year option question? I think it's a smokescreen. That's what this whole video is about. Blowing smoke. Also on 420. I didn't realize the funniness of that when I did this. But I do think AVT is going to have his 5th-year option exercised, and I think Joe Douglas is trying to make it seem like we may not exercise it, so that way it may seem like we're going offensive line in the 1st round. And maybe that prevents a receiver. Maybe that prevents a team from trading in front of us for a receiver. And maybe a team trades in front of us for Bowers, and that final receiver is there for us. Or a receiver falls to 8 and we jump up. I think AVT is definitely coming back. The Judy extension with Cleveland was ridiculous. Was that the one that was $51 million guaranteed? Was it 3 years, 75 or something like that, or 71? Yeah, I'm not a big Judy fan, I'll be honest. I wouldn't have really, I'd be fine with Judy for a 4th and trading Lazard. That would have been fine for me, but I wouldn't have wanted to give him that contract. That doesn't make me feel great. Evan says, I'm sending way too many questions, but one more for you. Is there a real argument, assuming the top 3 receivers are gone, for taking Brian Thomas Jr. over Bowers at 10? I think there's an argument for it. I wouldn't do it, because I think Bowers provides a different type of threat. I would probably be more trade down if the top 3 receivers are gone. And depending on how far back you'd have to fall would depend on if I would take Bowers or the trade down. I'm fine with Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know. I'm hoping I get one of the top 3 guys. BS Poor. says we need to either get a wide receiver or tackle in the first at 10 and trade down and get a guard if we aren't committing to AVT. We're going to commit to AVT. I don't think we're not committing. I think we're not committing to make it seem like we don't know what we're doing in the draft. I think it's all a smokescreen. Fletch says, you're way too chill about the offensive line being good enough. We know they won't stay healthy, and we need a great backup. Not just a decent or good backup. O-line has been our biggest problem. So I'm with you. We need depth, and we need insurance. I don't think you need to do that at the 10th overall pick. Look at all around the league. How many teams have this many first-round picks on the offensive line? Like, you don't. I think most of our offensive line woes have come from really bad quarterback play. And I think having Aaron Rodgers at least neutralizes some of that. I think Tyron Smith as an all-pro tackle and Morgan Moses as a stud on the right-hand side is easily the best offensive line we've had in recent memory. I think AVT, there's some concern with. I think I'm of the belief the Jets are bringing in Bakhtiari and McGovern after the draft. I've been saying this for well over a month now, that I think you're not going to restructure Conklin because you want to give the appearance of Bowers. I'm of the opinion that you don't exercise AVT's option right away, or you flounder a little bit on it because you want to give off signals that you're going offensive line. And then with Saleh saying that Mike Williams isn't going to be ready for the start of the season, that definitely tells me the Jets are looking offensive or looking wide receiver. Now, as far as offensive line, I've said this before, Tyron Smith hasn't been healthy since 2015, but he's never missed a playoff game. He's not injured when it matters most. And Morgan Moses plays 95% of the snaps. It may sound like I'm too nonchalant about the offensive line, but we got starters. And if you listen to the comment that I had earlier on here about Hackett, a little bit of insight. Hackett and the team said the offensive line is set. And this was said in confidence. So it wasn't said to a reporter. It wasn't said anything like that. It wasn't like, oh, here's a leak that's going to come out. It's like, no, this was a casual conversation. It's like, I think the offensive line's set. I really do. Kyle says, if Rome and Bowers there at 10, who do you think we should get? It's 𝐂𝐿𝐧𝐤𝐬 for me. I'm wide receiver over Bowers. I'm not against Bowers. I just if the top three receivers are gone, I would be more likely to go Bowers at that point. Sorry, Mike. JFM and 10 for the number 8 pick to swap and grab 𝐂𝐿𝐧𝐤𝐬. Yes, I would consider that. I would probably be a little bit more on board with a draft pick and 10 to get up to 8. It depends how much of a draft pick. If they're saying, hey, we want your 3rd round pick, or JFM, I would trade JFM in that capacity. I think his cap hit's a little bit high, but I think JFM's part of the solution more than he is, part of a problem in general. So I would like to keep him around and at least for the next 2 years and just go for it all. Lawrence says, dude, we have $130 million on defense, and that's going to go way up next year. We need offense to score, and the rules are making it so defense is useless. They get the ball, can't do much. You got to score. You got to be able to score. Team weapon, baby. Alan says, I would be very surprised if 𝐂𝐿𝐧𝐤𝐬 gets to 10. I think the 3rd wide receiver, it might be tough to get to 10. I think if he's there at 8, you make the jump. I think it's that important. Frank says they're not giving away next year's first fellas to move up 5 spots. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there, I think they will. I think they would do that. They're expecting that pick to be a late first, damn near a 2nd round pick, and you're going all in starting this year. If you think that's Julio Jones, do it. It is 100% worth it if that's the type of evaluation you have on Neighbors or Harrison Jr. Now, look, if you can get up to 5 without giving up the first, more power to you. I think you're going to have to, and I'm not worried about future picks right now, especially after how free agency kind of landed with us. I'm pretty happy. Kelvin, I would only trade for a playmaker or alt or stay put and pick your last big board. So my last big board, he's talking about alt Odunze Bowers. I'm confident Bowers will be there. Odunze, I do think, has a shot to make it there. You need 4 quarterbacks and 2 defensive players to go. If that happens, then I think 10 is a wide receiver for us. Why did Green Bay need another weapon when they put up 85 receiving touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns over those 2 years following the draft? Because the quarterback didn't help them. It helped them long term, but not to go get a Super Bowl. Like Jordan Love did not help them in the NFC Championship game. I think you can argue any player, even a defensive player probably would have helped them a little bit more. I think that's more what it is. But I think with Rodgers in the twilight of his career, I think going up to get the wide receiver, because you didn't know he was going to go 85 touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns too, heading into that. Like I think in that receiving class, T. Higgins would have been the move to make. And it gives you a little bit more insurance with Devontae Adams too, I guess. Like maybe Rodgers would have stayed in Green Bay for, an extra few years. Or maybe you say the drafting of Love pissed off Rodgers so much that he's like, all right, let's go. And that's how he won the MVP. So maybe we should take a quarterback and do the same thing. Maybe that's the only argument you can make for it. Massimo says, Odunze is so bad. What's so bad about him? I want to hear. Why do you think Odunze is bad? What's bad about his game? Bakhtiari and McGovern coming in as depth would be huge. I don't know if Bakhtiari signs to be a backup, but that would be awesome. So Bakhtiari, it depends what happens. I think Kansas City could be a very likely landing spot for Bakhtiari if they think he's healthy enough to start. But if he's not getting a starting job elsewhere, I could see him taking like a prove-it deal like a Tyron Smith to be here. Like, hey, we'll pay you top tackle money. All you got to do is play. I'm cool with that. Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Williams, Conklin, Brees with A-Rod at the controls gives us a nice shot at a Super Bowl. I agree. I think wide receiver is the way to go. Hennessy, nah, Ryan. Hugh thinks Green Bay did the right thing. We are all wrong. I don't think put it this way. I think the long-term outlooks, yes, drafting a quarterback is a fine move. Obviously, it's working out for them right now. Now, if the goal was to win a Super Bowl, I don't think they did the right thing with drafting Love. Keep it simple. I see JD grabbing Stiggers with the last pick. Sit behind Reed before taking over if it hits. I do want to go corner in this draft. I'd be open to going corner much earlier than I think other people are. Ryan, who's your bang your head against the wall pick? Offensive only. Honestly, you know what's funny, Sneakers and Boots? I saw you sent this comment to Blue It. I wasn't in the stream when he did it. I watched the stream after the fact, but I'm gonna echo his comments. It's Bowers. It's absolutely Bowers. There's a part of me that really hopes we do not select him, and that's someone that I like Bowers a lot. But I don't really want to have to deal with the Bowers boys and the headaches that come with that particular selection. I'm hoping it's a wide receiver, and I want weapon, so I would be fine with Bowers. So maybe I shouldn't be saying, Bowers is the option, but that is, I'm going to be excited for Bowers. I'm going to root for Bowers. Everything about it. But if there's one player that could go to another team and fucking shit the bed really hard, it's kind of Bowers for me. I'm hoping that would be the case. I think he's going to be exciting though. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's sort of how I feel. NYJTV, Ryan, been a long time. I hope the Jets avoid drafting a quarterback in any round. To me, that's a throwaway pick in an all-in year. Love you, brother. So there was part of me that did feel that way. I think Douglas saying he wants to be a quarterback factory kind of implies that you want to have that backup quarterback. I would say you don't take a quarterback over a position that you think can help you this year. Maybe you decide it's a 6th round quarterback and you like Joe Milton or someone like way late. I think 4th round is where I start to feel comfortable with it. I like Braylon Allen in the 4th round if you can get him as your running back 2. I feel like the 1st round pick and the 3rd round pick, you can get impact guys for this year. But 4th round and beyond starts to get like a little dicey. So if you think Jordan Travis or Pratt could be a future guy for you and be like someone that can compete to be a starting quarterback at some point, I think the wise move would be to let that quarterback sit behind Rodgers for 2 years and then have 2 years post Rodgers, once you have that enormous dead cap hit from him, to at least have a guy on a rookie contract that's cheap enough for you to kind of figure it out until you can, move up for the quarterback you want if, this quarterback doesn't work out. It kind of gives you two cracks at it. Massimo, Odunze, the national championship game was horrible. That's the closest to NFL talent he's ever seen and was a ghost out there. I mean, the entire team went against like elite competition too. So I don't know if it's necessarily purely an Odunze thing. Like Penix didn't look great in that game. I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit overblown. I do think Odunze for me would be wide receiver 3, like in order there. But I don't think it's necessarily like a worse pick than Brian Thomas Jr. or, I don't know. I'm on board with it. I said carried by Penix. Yeah, look, Penix played well the last few years, for sure. And Polk and Odunze were big benefactors of it. Fletch says, if we want to score more, the O-line is more important than a weapon. We've had great weapons in Garrett and Brees. They haven't scored much because the O-line couldn't block or protect the quarterback. Yeah, well, we just swapped out. We have like 4 new opening day starters. Like, we did address offensive line. Like, if you're advocating for a backup offensive lineman that we hope plays like 30% of the snaps this year in an all-in season, like I can't get behind that. I'm not a big O lineman at 10. If you want to trade down, I'm way more open to it because I think you can get an impact player in the 2nd round at wide receiver. And I don't disagree that O line hasn't been a problem, but Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses is wildly different than Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton. And then I would even argue that Bakhtiari and McGovern coming in lessens the need for an offensive lineman. Not to mention, like, do you trust Keith Carter to develop your offensive line player? And do you think that, offensive linemen that generally take a minute to produce, is it worth having a guy that's not really going to help you a whole heck of a lot and is just an insurance policy? Like, I don't like that. I don't want quarterback until we move on from Hackett. I want a quarterback to sit behind Rodgers. I think he'll learn more behind Rodgers. And then Hackett. I honestly like Hackett. I don't like Hackett the play caller or the offensive coordinator. I like Hackett the person. So maybe if you could learn through osmosis through Tyrod Taylor and through Aaron, I'm okay with it. Lawrence says it'd be cool if JD extends AVT instead of the 5th year. That way it's a lower cap hit. That's what I would prefer to see done. I don't love AVT's 5th year cap hit. It's $15.3 million, which would make him, I think it was the 6th highest paid guard or the 20th highest paid tackle if he were to bump out that way. I like AVT. I'm not concerned of him like getting hurt consistently year in and year out. So I would retain him, make it a 3-year contract or whatever. Hopefully Ryan gets Hackett fired for the leak. I don't know how much they watch my stuff, especially in here. Freedom House, hey Ryan, you got 2 streams going on your channel for some reason. I'm not sure if you're aware. I am. It's actually an algorithm thing. So we have, a chunk of people in the vertical stream and a chunk of people in the horizontal stream. And the people that are seeing the vertical stream are catching it from the YouTube Shorts shelf. So it's people that may not have found the channel before. So we'll see how it all plays out. Tony says the cap is real. AVT's 5th year and JD Redick's franchise tag are not restructurable. That should be $38 million. Jets don't have restructurable contracts on the 25 roster other than Quinnen. I do think Quinnen would restructure, and I do think AVT is more likely to get a contract extension. If you don't have the money to franchise tag Reddick, then you just let him walk, I guess. But I do think I would want to retain him. Maybe they want just the compensation pick, and if he balls out this year, maybe it's not worth franchise tagging him. I think that's fine. If you're going in for a second year, I would like to tag Reddick, and I think you can figure out how to get it done. There's too many teams that have terrible cap situations that figure out how to keep all their star players. So I'm a little less concerned. Yeti says, thanks, Tony. I was in a good mood. Basil, I feel that injury percentage goes down without Zach. He held the ball too long, causing the O-line to play harder to protect Zach and the ball. I completely agree. I think Zach Wilson made the offensive line look worse. That's part of the reason why you saw McGovern and some of the other offensive linemen not help Zach up and kind of not like him because they're making them look bad. Zach Wilson caused a lot of people to not make much money because of how poor he was behind the line of scrimmage. And I think he had a better season last year. I wish we could have seen him in a full, redshirt year behind Rodgers, but I don't think that's, I don't know. Hackett giving away the plans while JD trying to do smoke screens. They should put Hackett in the bathroom. I don't think anyone expected me to hear this information in Hackett's conversation. And I don't think anyone of another team is going to watch enough of my content to know that popped out. So that's all right. Let's see. Sneakers Boots. If we draft Brian Thomas Jr. at 10, I'll lose my mind. Look, I'll be excited. Jets have some pretty good draft history of taking receiver at 10, so I'll believe in it. Lawrence, Bakhtiari would probably never be a backup on any team except ours because Rodgers is loving 69, as his license plate says. Yeah, I love Bakhtiari got Rodgers a golf cart that says loving 69. 69, obviously the number of Bakhtiari. I would love to see Bach over here. If he can't get a starting job somewhere, I think he could wind up being there. JD putting out into the ether that he wants the Jets to be a quarterback factory is as big of a long shot than hell freezing over. Our franchise is a graveyard. Yeah, we just can't figure out quarterbacks. But I do want to be a quarterback factory. If you start taking quarterbacks in the middle rounds and now there's no pressure on them starting and they can learn and develop in a proper manner, that's how I want to do it. I don't want to go up and get or draft a quarterback like we did with Wilson again and Sam, drafting them to a bad team, expecting them to be the franchise. I like going either the Texans route or the Chiefs route where you trade up for your guy. I'm talking about Texans Watson era as opposed to CJ. I think they got a little lucky with the CJ Stroud pick. Yeti says, later, y'all. Great chat. The dude abides. Dazed and Confused is next. I love it. Great movie list. Happy 420. Enjoy responsibly. Don't forget to click on the link in the description down below if you guys want to try out some gummies and stuff. I'm a big proponent of it. Big fan. Big fan. Odunze was wide open in that Michigan game. Even Daniel Jeremiah said Rome should have had 150 yards if Penix wasn't struggling. What are people talking about? I'm still an Odunze fan. I like his personality a lot. There's certain wide receivers, obviously the skill set matters the most. You're not going to get choir boys all the time, but Rome feels like his personality fits in really well with this team. And him being already close to Garrett, I think helps the likelihood of maybe Garrett retaining, staying on the Jets long term. Filipino says, my vote is to trade down, get a second, and draft an offensive lineman in the first, wide receiver in the second. If we trade down, that would be my game plan as well. Receiver is my first hope. Sneakers. Hugh, I'm sorry. But we Jet fans don't care about the Packers, and if they should have won, and that if they should have won one Super Bowl, especially about bent officiating, Jets get bent over a barrel every year, respectively. Yeah, we always do. It sucks. Can someone explain the Hackett? All right, I guess since people are talking about it, let's. I'll pull it back up. So this was coming from. Nope. Hold on. I gotta pull it back up. Give me a sec. Pause. All right, I think this is the right layout that I had. All right, so this came from Nathaniel Hackett. This was a source that I do feel I vetted enough to at least feel confident in the information that's being relayed. He came in, told his son to put a pack of Russell Wilson cards, or that had Russell Wilson on the cover, put it back. Russell still gives him nightmares, lol. I said, big day coming up soon. He said, yeah, they just wrapped up a draft meeting not too long ago. He explained how draft meetings go. Basically, players' names get brought up and scouts and coaches give their comments. He said, end of the day, pick comes down to Joe Douglas, but he made it known he is in love with the top 3 wide receivers. If none of the 3 are available, he would like to trade back because his next 3 favorites are, in his words, 𝐂𝐲𝐬𝐷𝐻, Brian Thomas Jr., and pretty Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. I asked him about Roman Wilson. He likes him. I brought up Johnny Wilson. He said he hates him as a prospect. He has Kelvin Benjamin written all over him. I've been told, he told me best case scenario is 4 quarterbacks and 2 defensive players go before us because then they are pretty confident a wide receiver is going to fall to them. I asked him about offensive line. He said our O-line is set. He feels we are in a win now mode and doesn't see us going O-line. If we do, Alt Fatanu or Talise Funga out of Oregon were his votes. Alabama scares him. He gave him vibes that the O-line, the Alabama offensive lineman J.C. Latham scares him. He gave me vibes that O-line is not a top priority. I asked him about Bowers. He didn't comment much about him. I told him fans are 50-50 split on him and that there's Bowers boys. He said he refuses to read anything NFL related put out by the media. It's probably a good thing, honestly. The dude's eyes literally opened up talking about wide receiver. He badly wants one of the top 3. I would go so far as to say drooling over them. He also told me the Giants are the biggest wild card as the Jets organization is not sure what direction they're going. He said either they're awesome at smokescreens or they aren't even sure what they want. My opinion, and only my opinion, I feel if one of the top 3 wide receivers are there, they're going to pick one up. If Bowers is there, if they have a partner they would like to trade down, I told him, just tell them not to go defense. And his response, why? So you think I said best case 4 quarterbacks and Turner and a cornerback go before us? That's no worries. Or that worries me. So maybe, I don't know. I think it's good. I think he jacked up that last conversation point. But keep an eye on Ricky Pearsall. If we don't go wide receiver in round 1, he really seems to like him. So that's where the conversation about Hackett comes in. So I do think offensive line is very much settled at number 10. I don't think we're going to do that. If we trade down, I think they're open to offensive line. Wrong Verb says 𝐂𝐲𝐬𝐬𝐷𝐻 is going to be such a productive pro. He's crazy fast. I'm open to wide receiver in a trade down. I think a lot of the second round receivers are really exciting to me, particularly 𝐂𝐲𝐬𝐬𝐷𝐻. I think he could be baby A.J. Brown or Deebo Samuel. I'd like to see that. Freedom House, what the fuck? Hackett giving away our plan. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't air it. But you know what? Sorry. Semi-reporter, fan, whatever. I think it's interesting. Maybe it doesn't mean anything at all. Maybe this guy's completely blowing smoke. But I saw a picture of him with Hackett. So I know he was at least there. And the conversation seems to align with how I can source with other people. I can tell you this. Another person that I do know that has ties close to the Jets organization. I don't know if he works with them anymore or if he's just like tight with someone there. I think there are some personality concerns with Neighbors, and this guy told me they wouldn't be surprised if Fontenot went over Neighbors if they were both on the board. Now, I don't agree with that. I would still take Neighbors over Fontenot, But I do hope Neighbors goes ahead of the Jets because I like Marvin Harrison Jr. and I like Odunze a little bit more. But I thought that was interesting. The reason that came up in conversation is because I was talking about how the Jets really like statement picks or like, hey, this is what a Jet is. That's why they took Sauce at 4 over Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm like dead set on that. And I think I get the same vibes to some degree of like Neighbors. Like there's a little bit of an arrogance to him. I guess you have to have that type of confidence when you're that good of a receiver going at a top school in LSU, having the seasons that he's had. But there is something to his comment about the Giants and like needing a quarterback that doesn't make me feel great about his prospects post Rodgers, where I don't have those same concerns with Odunze or Marvin Harrison Jr. And that might mean, you know, Neighbors is a far better wide receiver, and maybe that gets us over the hump to a Super Bowl anyway. But it was just interesting conversations that are had, and I'm just going to share them when I have them. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not going to tell you, you know, I'm not lying. I can tell you what I think. Lawrence says, the New York market is ruthless for rookie quarterbacks. Whenever we get one, the bridge guy plays bad. Everyone screams for the rookie. Yeah, I don't like New York in a pressure situation. Freedom House. If it was legal by me, Ryan, I'd click that link. Look into it. It might be, state-wise, it might not be legal, but I think federally, Delta 9 THC by weight that's where this stuff becomes like legal, because there's a certain percentage of weight in this. I don't know if it says it on the can, but you're allowed to, so less than 0.3. Let me see if I get the less than 0.3% Delta 9 THC by weight, because the weight of the can is so much, and it makes the weight of the percentage so light in THC that this can actually ship legally to any state. I'm pretty sure. I think if you go on their website, it has it there. But it's 10 milligrams of THC, which 25 is usually enough to get you feeling real good. They have a 50 milligram seltzer too. That's rock solid. I really like that. The rationale I use for that sort of thing is like, if you're going to spend $20-$30 at a bar, you know, drinking alcohol, you could spend $10 and get one of those seltzers and you're buzzing, you're cruising. So I think from that perspective, it's not bad. But I would look into it, Freedom House. You might be able to get it. I think there's some sort of goofy rule with that happened a few years back that it was by weight is like okay. So you can take a look at it. Rich says gummies. The gummies are good. I really like the gummies. Keeps me calm with this whole damn team. Let's see. What else we got going on in here? Oh, damn. I'll click and check it out. Seriously. Take a look at it. Just a guy. Happy 420, boys. Happy holidays. Happy Green Day. Fletch says, no one likes an insurance policy until they need it, but when you need it, you're thankful you have it. The odds of us cashing in on an O-line insurance policy is very high, just my opinion. But what is your opinion of the Jets beating the Chiefs, the Bengals, or the Ravens in a shootout? Like, are you confident? Like, because I could say the same thing. Like, Garrett Wilson gets hurt. Are you confident Mike Williams is the guy to get us past those teams? I think for as much as you say offensive line is an insurance policy, I think McGovern and Bakhtiari can be an insurance policy. And I would take, you know, any of the top 3 receivers plus McGovern and Bakhtiari as our insurance policy over a top 10 tackle and OBJ as our insurance policy. I'm not like totally dead set against offensive line. Like, I like it in a trade down, but like I do think that wide receiver is a much more pressing need than offensive line right now. Let's see. Tim says ESPN or NFL Network for the draft. The Talkin' Jets channel, my friend. We're going to be showing all the picks on screen. So you'll hear our commentation in between it, but then we'll have the ticker across the bottom that has all the draft picks. We'll have the commissioner coming up and saying each of the draft picks throughout all 3 days of the draft. Like, if you guys have not hung out with us on a Talkin' Jets draft stream, day 3 gets fucking nuts. We talk about some wacky stuff. We got a bunch of guests coming on too. We've got Blewett, Sabo, Will Parkinson's coming on. Luke Grant from Play Like a Jet's coming on. Scott Mason from Play Like a Jet's coming on. Ali, Loyal NY Jet Fans is coming on. Jude Jets, our boy's coming on. I reached out to Fireman Ed yesterday. I'll see if he responds back to me. He came on last year. I'm amazed I made it that long with that camera not crapping out. Let's see if it switches back. Yeah, there we go. We're live again. Rich, that room is fire. Thank you. Thank you. I've put a decent amount of time and energy and thought into what goes on in the room. These are really cool. I made those myself. Those are legit. Those are DH Gate jerseys, and then I built the frames for them and had that made. And then I got a new helmet coming in right back here. That one's going to get replaced with a new Jet Legacy helmet. So new additions. And I have a thing being custom built right here. It's going to be like a Jets, Knicks, Rangers, Yankees kind of sign, which, you know, I don't really watch the other sports, but I would say those would be my 3 other teams if I had to pick. I'm mainly just a Jet fan, but I got some stuff going on. So thank you. Oh, Tim's asking, which one do I prefer? I think we usually do ESPN. No, NFL Network. Because I like Eisen and I like Daniel Jeremiah a lot. But I'll be honest, it's whichever one, you know, I can pull up on screen the most easy. Most of the time I'm just talking with Green Bean and Matt. So I haven't really like locked into the draft coverage itself from the draft in like 5 years because it's mainly been us talking about it. Lauren says the Chiefs just got Brown and we'll get another wide receiver, just saying, even though they won without it because they know they had help. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. Tim says, I watched you guys the last 3 years. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, the draft stream is a blast. I honestly look forward to it the most out of any of our streams throughout the entirety of the year. All right. I think am I at 3 hours right now? I think I'm at 3 hours. I'm going to stop. This is a long stream. All right, let's wrap it up. Boys and girls, you guys heard my comments on Hackett. You guys know my thoughts on the big board. I got some other videos that I think I'll drop. You might be able to see some of the Hackett stuff in another video. Maybe I'll consolidate it a little bit more. But I appreciate you guys hanging out and tuning in here. If you guys want to help your brother out, support the sponsors of the channel down below in the comment section. Hit the like button. Share this channel with some of your Jet fan buddies. It helps grow it and helps me continue doing what I love doing. I enjoy all you boys and girls out there in the chat. This is Jets Talk, signing off. Happy 420. JETS.